Yeah.
You know, we brought you on because we thought you had experience, Shaun. Could you act that way, please?
Yeah. Good luck. When the fuck did we get ice cream? Does anybody know the movie?
Yeah. What is that movie?
The Ringer?
The Ringer. Yeah.
My wife and I, we quote that. Only that quote.
Yeah. Right.
Over and over again.
I feel like is that somewhat of a generational thing, is to quote movies? Do kids still do that?
I don't know. I think with the TikToks and things now,
they just quote TikToks.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
I hang out with the 5-month-old and a 5-year-old all day. That's all. So I don't know.
Yeah. Well,
what are they into?
I think it's less like quotable, right? Because like not everybody sees the same TikToks and stuff over and over again. We're like, what was it? That was the thing. It was like before memes or whatever. It was just guys quoting Anchorman back and forth to each other over and over again. Yeah.
Well, dude, but think about it. No, they don't make those movies anymore.
No,
they don't. People don't really go out on the ledge and make those kind of like risky movies.
Yeah. Well, they were talking about that. Who was? I think Matt Damon or somebody was talking about that one time, where it's like it's not worth it for the studios to make movies like that. It's like they only are trying to do like these blockbuster movies because that's the only things like people go and actually spend money to go see,
right,
like in theater. And so that's why you don't see those like comedy movies anymore. But we're on Fast, 25 or whatever.
Family.
There will be no slander on Fast and Furious series.
I'm sorry. Tokyo Drift was the last one I saw, so I don't know what's happening since.
You've missed a lot.
Catch us up.
The saga, Slow and the Curious.
How long do we have?
Episode 22.
What about that was
Fast and Furious?
I saw a TikTok about that where it was like I only saw the first Fast and the Furious, and then I saw Fast and the Furious 9. It's like I saw the first one and then Fast 9, and it's like the first one is like Ludacris makes spare money by running a car racing ring at night in Miami, and then it's like Fast 9. He's like
that was Fast and Furious 2.
Sorry, he's it's like Fast 9. It's like Ludacris. It's like I've hacked into like the Pentagon.
Have you seen the one? It's like they defy all like laws of gravity or physics, and it's like you can do anything with family. And he's like fucking flying off a cliff. Family.
That's too funny.
We made the round of shirts that we did recently. The family with the triangle in it started because there were some Fast and Furious jokes going on in the company group text. And so I made that shirt. I made the mock-up of that shirt really quick. And everybody was like, wait, hold on. That actually is kind of cool.
It's our Vin Diesel shirt.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Vin Diesel.
That's it. Well, Kevin, you want to do the introduction this time?
Yeah.
Ooh.
For those that don't know, this is Shaun Vasquez. Good friend. Has been for a long time. Been in the game for a long time. IFBB pro. Retired bodybuilder, owner of Pride Foods. For those of you that shop in Triad, you know the rice and grinds, you know the nut butters. But man, we work with your product. We carry your products. Man, we started carrying them because you were releasing them, and you have a very, very good reputation in the industry, and a lot of people know you here in OKC. So we knew a little bit about them, but we carried them because we trusted you. But the reason that they do well is because they are genuinely good products. And I think that comes down to attention to detail, the flavoring, the ingredients, all the way down to, you've talked about, you've visited the farms where the rice is grown.
Yep.
So.
Yeah. Now you guys have been one of the best accounts for us just to work with, but also just sheer volume. And it's, I can say nothing but great things about you guys and expanding. I was right behind Brian. I was excited for you guys to expand. When I was in Dallas, when I worked for Nutrex, the same thing. I was like, man, it's such a great environment for people to have stores if they do it the right way. So when you guys started to finally kind of break that veil and do that, it was exciting. Not because like, oh, we're going to sell more. No, just because this is a great area for it. And I mean, we're obviously at one of y'all's warehouses because it's been fun to watch, and I appreciate the support. It's been fun.
Yeah,
man, it's been fun to grow with you, and fun to watch you grow as well, man. And expand into new products, to watch your volume grow, and every time I see someone that's a famous bodybuilder using rice and grinds, I still get excited about it.
So do I.
Or a famous CrossFit athlete.
Or a famous CrossFit athlete. Yeah.
Well, I got a quick present for you that I just thought of. So whenever you decide to write an autobiography about like the struggles that it's been, running your businesses, it's going to be called The Rice and Grinds.
I like it. I like it. Trademark that.
Yeah.
Well, I already did.
Yeah.
It's funny. People like, I don't know if it's a language thing or what, or they just don't read it. Like when I was in the Army, they called me Vasquez. I'm like, you can't read. My name's right here. And people will say, oh, it's Rise and Grinds. And I'm like, the C is not an S, buddy. Go, customer's always right. That's fine.
Yeah.
Call it what you want.
We still get a lot of people, honestly, probably more than we used to. We get a lot of triads.
Ooh, I have gotten a lot of triads lately.
Mm-hmm.
Really?
Yeah.
Like triage, but triads.
That's it's a lot of times nurses that say triad. Because I think they're so used to saying triage.
Yeah.
You say I'm French. French.
You got them.
Yeah,
we got there.
We're making fun of people when you're talking.
No, that is so how long have you been at the triad? And it's like, man, like I've been okay.
And you guys are entering in how long? 6, 8?
We're in our 8th year, so we've been open for 7 years. We'll be 8 years old in November.
Yeah.
And did Define, was it simultaneous? Or a few years after that?
Pretty simultaneously.
Okay.
We were formulating and working with manufacturers prior to the store's opening. Officially released our Define products. We opened obviously in November of 2015. We released our products in January of 2016. So pretty simultaneously. Define has been more of a roller coaster. Not that Triad hasn't been, but that was definitely one where we started off with a lot and quite a bit of inventory. And like, I think we started with 12 or 13 different SKUs, including all the flavors and everything. We found a manufacturer that would do smaller minimums, and we were young 20-year-olds with way too big of a loan.
Isn't it crazy? What you just learn and go through. And we're just entered our 4th year. And I mean, God,
yeah,
the things that you just wish you have to learn it the hard way.
And I don't learn in a school setting very well. So it's lessons stick with me a lot more if I screw something up. So I think that's just what I have to do. So.
And they're so expensive though, man.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
They're so
expensive.
expensive.
You think school is expensive.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And like, how can we still be going with that mistake? But we're here.
Well,
right?
now we're sitting in a warehouse. Right?
Yeah.
It's crazy to think, like thinking back to those times of like the first, Define phase 1 that was a resounding success. It's phoenixed itself and come from its flames to be something cooler, but and something that's working for us really well now. But to imagine and think back to those moments, and now to literally be just staring at all the products and all the things that we have, it's been a crazy journey, but it's been super cool. But yeah, man, wouldn't it be nice to go back though and like have that money again?
Yeah, no, we had to scale back to 3 units at one point in time, or 3 SKUs at one point in time. And so that was kind of a balancing act of like letting inventory run out and recouping that cash. And it was like, man, it probably would have been easier just keep that cash from the get-go.
You're right. So a lot of the SKUs that you have now, did you like relaunch them? Or did you just redo them, period?
A handful, yes. We relaunched almost everything that we relaunched was reformulated. Some by a lot, some by a very little. We haven't worked with the manufacturer that we worked with for the first time. I think I've told you that nightmare story.
Oh yeah,
I've shared that on the podcast.
Yeah. We're not so sure they're still a manufacturer. Haven't looked into it, but
that's true. Not too concerned if they are or not. But yeah, new manufacturer, so new flavor systems, and obviously staying up with the times and new studies on ingredients and whatnot. So, and what generally is popular, what's not popular. So. So some reformulations, some brand new stuff, some stuff that we didn't have from the get-go. We now have probably over 20 SKUs, including the flavors, 11 different products but probably typically a couple flavors per SKU.
Sure,
Yeah.
sure. Nice. Yeah.
Crazy. But it's the same as anything though. Like we've all gone through traumas or issues or things that, didn't go the way that we wanted it to, but it all led us to being here. Maybe if we would have had that money, we would have screwed something else up worse. And so
That's a good point.
we have to kind of sit here and just take with, what it was, and this is what it's led to. And I think we're all happy. So
Luckily we spent it on inventory where we could recoup the money as opposed to advertising where we couldn't.
Yeah. Failure, there's feedback over failure.
Yeah. Right.
How many SKUs did you start with?
Just rice and grinds, 5, 12 serving, 4 flavors, 30 serving, unflavored. I had shirts, but my buddy Mike Krausen at Coffee Over Cardio taught me how to kind of show that I had more than I really had. So I had the heat transfers and the shirts. So I'd had like 5 shirts, and then just make them to order, which we still do, and they're great, and we love it. But the main ones were 5 SKUs, and then we're actually getting ready to transition back to less. So part of like just getting raked over the coals and education is realizing like how important the 20-80 rule is. 20% of your product make up 80% of your sales.
Yep.
And the demand has just been there for us so long. We're finally getting past the issues that transpired from the inventory issues that we had, because we had to wait 16 and 18 months for 2 orders to arrive. And then they arrived within 3 months of one another.
Yeah.
And lost market share, lost customers, on and on and on. Right. And so 30 servings is what our customers want. It's our retailers make more on it. Our distribution partners make more on it. Our customers get a better value on it as well. And so
everybody wins.
Yeah. And they love it. And so they don't want to come back every
The initially starting out, because we were the first and only to do something like that, having that price point that high, someone invest in that, it was kind of something that didn't necessarily want to do. And that fear still lingered around for 4 years.
Yeah.
And I finally realized, like, what am I doing? Right. By just being out of stock on this SKU, I'm like, oh my crap, I'm losing all this money just by unflavored being out of stock. Right. Trying to manage both flavors, minimums, bags, etc., and doing things on such a small level as far as like employees. So I made the decision to remove them. But we are going to introduce single serving variety packs so that people can still try us.
Nice.
Which I think, and I've talked to a very good friend of mine, Brady.
That's cool.
At Astroflave, and he was with me at Nutrex. Super good dude, a lot of experience, and that actually may help conversion because it's a lower price point for serving. It's more per serving, but it's a lower price point overall.
Yeah.
And so people will be able to get into the brand. Maybe we even do stuff to where it's a promo, just pay for shipping, we'll give it to you, etc. And then they'll be introduced and so top 4 flavors, and then they'll go hit the ground running.
Well, yeah, that makes sense, because one of the things that we always say is, like, for us, to not sound too have too much hubris in this, but it's like we are very big believers of, like, if we can get them in the door, we can win them from there.
Right.
And it's like our toughest thing is just getting them in the door the first time. Once you come in, though, you're going to meet Will, and you're never going to want to talk to anybody else again, right? Like, that's just Will's character, and that's who he is. And so I feel like the same thing exists for rice and grinds. Try a bowl, and then we'll see you tomorrow when you want to buy a bag, because you're going to love it. I mean, everybody, my girlfriend's parents, my fiance now, right? Got to get used to that. My fiance's parents go through a bag a week, if not more. They're in the Norman store constantly buying bags. And it was like, they had come in and her mom was like, "What's this?" And I was like, "Oh, I've actually got my brown sugar cinnamon in the back. Like, you want a scoop?" She took a scoop, went home and ate it, and drove right back and bought like 3 bags. And you're just like, it's that good. And it's like, once somebody tries it, like, I feel like it's hard to not want it.
So in knowing that and realizing that, I said, okay, we need to double down on what sells, and then we need to introduce something that we can get more people through the door, right? We can get into more hands, because we are a brand for everybody. My daughter still eats out. I had to tell her on the weekends, "Hey, sweetheart, like, we're not eating it on the weekends, right? Like, we're going to eat something else." And she's eating hard-boiled eggs or beef or something, right? Like anything else, waffles. But we are for everyone. The thing is we need to get in front of everyone more, right? Have the inventory, offer something at a lower price point. So
Yeah.
we're making all that to say we're going to have less SKUs, but we're going to be in stock. So maybe
Yeah.
more, right? And then looking at getting some maybe some limited flavors that we'll have this many. We'll sell them. We're going to move on to a new one.
That's cool.
So we're working on those. Hopefully have those this fall.
Nice.
Hey, okay.
Pumpkin spice, pumpkin pie.
Yeah.
Of course. Bring it back. We had it once already.
Yeah.
Do you think that you'll be able to be more consistent with your inventory and what's in stock with limiting the inventory, or with limiting the amount of SKUs?
Yes, for two reasons. One, because being able to manage that from just numbers and then financially. And two, I know it sounds crazy, but like I just now recently, the past 6 months, have sat down and done the work on knowing my inventory. So for example, a little over a year ago, we still were using what we initially launched with on the website in regards to like these variety packs. And they wouldn't track. So we would have to track, I would have to track manually if I wanted to, right? So you couldn't track the inventory. It wouldn't pull from, if this was brown sugar cinnamon and you had a brown sugar cinnamon and chocolate, it wouldn't pull from the brown sugar cinnamon. So there was no way to tell the volume accurately. And we had a 2-pack of every flavor. And so like just tracking inventory, maybe there was some way. I'm still just 4 years into this, right? And I'm doing everything else. And then until we hire Alfonso, then I'm doing everything else that he's not doing.
Right.
And so I just now sat down the past 6 months and looked at like where all of our different channels that we sell through, what that volume looks like, what lead time looks like, all the different things. I'm like, oh, okay, well, I built my own calculator. I didn't even know I was doing it at the time. And I built my own calculator where I plug in the numbers on an Excel sheet and it pops up and says, okay, this is your volume, sell through, etc. Didn't know that. I was flying blind for 4 years.
Really?
Yeah, flying blind. So like, one, consolidating the inventory for the help of cash flow. And then now knowing that this is the most important thing you need to keep your finger on, right? Not knowing that, literally flying blind.
Right.
That's crazy.
But people say it, but there's, you can like hear it and then you can know it. I finally now I know it.
Yeah.
Right.
It is funny how, I mean, we've got probably a dozen different like go-to Excel sheets. I mean, I create a new Excel sheet about once a week, but we've probably got a dozen that are like saving graces for us that just got created because we ran into a problem. We've got the exact same one for define inventory that we were kind of in the same boat where we were kind of, we would watch inventory. How many boxes does it look like we have up there?
Oh, it's a pallet. I should probably order some. I move a pallet a week, you idiot.
Yeah, and it's, dude, the pace of things can be so much different from one flavor or one product to the next that I started kind of getting to the point where it's like, this looks like it's going to be kind of close. Let me run numbers on it really quick. Okay, we're selling them at this pace, we have this much left. Okay, well, what about what we damage out for like giving out for samples and all that? Okay, we got to factor that into, and then it calculates and it's like, oh, okay, we've got, we need to order this next month. Okay, all right, cool. That's good to know. Man, even since we've had that calculator, which, I mean, we went the first 3 or 4 years without it too.
Yeah.
We've even made mistakes on it where, which can be pretty detrimental because if you're too late on ordering something, you've got that span of time where you don't have that product and you're missing out on those sales and that profit. But if you order too soon, at least for us, we move through inventory, at least especially in the past. And really now that we're kind of bumping up our order quantities is if we order too soon and we have some left over, when it comes to expiring, that's thousands of dollars that we just got to throw away. So it can be extremely detrimental either way.
And so having those two SKUs, so we have like, okay, I have a calculator. Well, then if we run out of the 30 or the 12, well, for example, if we run out of the 30, which is typically what happens, then the 12, the sell through may be 25 a day. And all of a sudden it's 40 a day.
Yeah.
Because you're out of the 30. right? People are
People want it,
ordering 10 at a time.
Right. You have to anticipate, the changes in that.
Right.
Yeah.
Like
Yes.
I know our hydrates are extremely seasonal. We sell probably double the amount in the summer than we do in the winter. So you have to, we're calculating off the last 4 months. The last 4 months were, end
Uh-huh.
of winter, and we're heading into spring and summer. It's like pace is going to pick up.
Yep.
We can't really base it off of just this calculation.
Kind of got
So-
to look at last year.
Right. I'm talking to Alyssa hopefully now to kind of expand our what our time frame of what we're basing our projections off of to be 12 months instead of 4 months. So
Yeah.
And what I'm learning now is, so I have to add in the Amazon piece to that as well, because we've been on Amazon and growing organically on Amazon.
nice.
And with out of stocks last month, we still had our biggest month on Amazon, and we haven't been doing anything. I finally got the agency. We made some switches right after Christmas or after Black Friday, and the agency got them to like create A+ content, a brand page, makes it look really, really good on Amazon, and naturally that helps and increases reviews. I mean, everybody shopped on Amazon. You see some of those brands like, oh, they look really, really good,
Yeah.
right? So I had them kind of do that, consolidated the ASINs, the SKUs, and started to grow. But now I have to pull those numbers and lead time, the time to ship, for them to check it in, all that stuff matters as well.
Yeah.
And no, I don't have any experience
Yeah.
knowing any of this.
Well, that's like I was having a conversation with a customer yesterday because they were talking about just like different stuff and stuff being out of stock, or hey, when is this going to come back in? And we were just talking about how like lead time, it's crazy how like long some of this stuff takes to get in.
Yep.
Like we had a problem one time. I think it was we accidentally told one customer about reformulating one product, and I don't even remember what it was. It was like sleep or something like that. Or just got brought up because I think our new sleep doesn't have melatonin in it, and I think one of the customers that we had was looking for a sleep product that didn't have melatonin in it, and I don't remember who the employee was, but said something like, "Oh man, actually, the new defined sleep that's going to be coming out doesn't have melatonin in it, so be on the lookout for that." Well, that customer then proceeded to come in every week for 6 months until like the new defined sleep arrived and was released. And it was like, we're having these conversations and people just don't realize that like, no, the turnaround time on like actually ordering from this to being in my hand is so long. And it's
when I say we're about to have it, it's not next week.
like
it's
we
like
go, oh,
hopefully
we
next
ordered
year.
it. And then we all kind of forget about it. And it's like, oh, it showed up. And we're like, oh yeah.
No, if I say it's here next week, then hopefully it'll be here next week. If I don't say that,
right.
just assume that.
Right.
Just follow us on social media.
Yeah.
We'll tell you when it's there.
Right. Exactly.
I run into that quite a bit.
I'm going to light my cigar.
Ooh, I forgot we had them. What are we smoking? We all got different ones, I think.
Yeah, I brought a variety.
Deadwood.
Sean likes the Deadwoods.
I'm a basic bitch.
He likes those fat bottom Betties, I think.
I do
I'll
like
tell my
fat
wife.
bottom. I like fat bottom Betties too. I got the 12 hostels. 12 apostles. I'm just kidding. It's a joke.
Well, why it's a joke?
Because I said it wrong. You're not good at jokes, are you?
I guess it just wasn't very good.
Yeah, I don't know.
You did get this one too wet, but I like it wet. I just wanted to
He
bring
was
that.
waiting. He wanted to do that one.
Got permission from Alfonso to say. I don't know if you guys know. You know? Yeah.
I think I might know.
Yeah. So he's heading to Dallas.
Heading to Dallas.
Yeah. I'm sure he's excited.
I think excited, very excited, and maybe some nerves there, which is good. And
40% nervous, 60% excited.
go.
That's
Just
the
jump.
formula, right?
I'm just happy that like we've had the conversation extensively. And since day one, I said, hey man, you're with us for a month, or you're with us for 10 years or a year, like whatever I can do to help. And in any way, shape or form. And so I'm excited for him because I left the nest, right? I jumped, kind of crazy, but so I told him, I said, man, we talked about it a lot, and it was pulling at him for a while to do it. And the situation and the environment kind of is fitting. So that's going to be a big change. So there's kind of the podcast kind of ceased to exist, if you will. Didn't really get our consistency, which it's on me 100% because I'm maintaining with the kids right now while my wife is still working at corporate America.
I mean, how old is your son now?
6 months yesterday.
That's okay.
Yep.
That's why I told someone that 6 months today. So it was a very good guess on my part.
He's y'all's October.
Yep.
Have y'all announced? Do y'all know?
Gender?
Yeah.
We don't know yet.
Okay.
Next visit, they'll do. There's so many tests I can't keep track of all of them. But whatever test they do to figure out the gender is next time apparently.
Blood test.
Yep.
Yeah.
We've done. Yeah, we did last time. We had to go to 2 different places to get 2 different blood tests after the doctor's visit. So
Jeez.
Yeah.
all kinds of stuff.
Kevin, what are we drinking?
Shaun, how do you pronounce this one?
Oh, corazon.
That's what I figured.
Heart.
Corazon.
Yeah, corazon.
It's an añejo tequila aged in bourbon barrels,
Yeah, Blanton barrels.
Blanton's
Nice.
bourbon barrels.
I hope that's right. I know my last name is Vasquez. I hope that's right. I don't know if it's corazon. You know what I mean? I'm
Corazon?
I'm assuming it's
That
corazon.
had nothing to do with us asking you. Nothing at all.
I'm
Purely
assuming.
coincidence.
I'm sure somebody will roast me if I'm wrong. Alfonso. That's all right.
No, that sounds right. That's how I assumed it was. I took a couple of Spanish classes when I was in high school.
So did I, and I failed them.
Yeah.
Just didn't go.
Yeah.
Nah. I literally failed them.
How'd you do in high school overall?
I graduated.
Good for you.
I played basketball and football, and that was the reason to pass.
Yeah.
And I mean, it was a really small community. We graduated with, I think, like 60 kids. That's the biggest class. Probably not now, but up to that
Sure.
point. And I mean, the middle school and the elementary were at where y'all store is, right? All on the same campus.
Mhm.
Pep rallies, all the kids would come in from the whole school. All that to say that, like, you had to, like, to fail, you really had to, like, just not be there, which I got to the point where I wasn't there.
Mm.
Sometimes I still have dreams that I'm actually still in high school
Really?
because I thought I failed.
Yeah.
dude.
Still just trying to pass, huh?
Just trying to
Trying to
survive.
graduate.
Yeah,
Yeah.
man.
This is actually an intervention. You are still in high school.
With alcohol.
Yeah.
Just give it to me. I like it. I like it.
That is very good. That's
It's very good.
yeah, that's tasty.
I was-
Shout out to Will for
Yeah.
grabbing that bottle
I
for
was
me.
gonna say.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was that I thought it would be good, but that is it's very sweet.
Yeah.
It's good.
Yeah. It's you can kind of get the bourbon from it a little bit. Let sweetness from the bourbon.
Mhm.
Yeah.
No ice.
No.
I think that's out of just because we don't have any here.
Fuck.
yeah. Plastic cups.
I mean, we're tough. We're manly men,
I see it.
neat whiskeys,
I like
and
it.
neat tequilas.
And a solo cup.
That's right.
we did our first podcast here in the warehouse was before we had anything. I think it was 2 pallets that were delivered earlier that day.
Yeah.
White table in the middle. Ryan set up on the other side, and we're like, let's
You
do
and
it at
I
the warehouse.
barely awake.
Yeah, we had worked a week prior to that, and Thomas was like, "What's the chances you have any whiskey with you?" And I'm like, "Dude, someone actually dropped a bottle off at the store earlier today as a
shit.
gift, totally by happenstance. So like, I just happened to have some, so he poured some in some plastic cups, and we were good to go.
Was it good?
It was good. It was Eagle Rare.
Oh.
Yeah.
That was
Yeah.
very good.
So since then, that's just we just haven't invested in glasses or ice yet. So
Yeah. we both pulled like 16 plus hour days or something like that, like that day, and then came and did the podcast.
Any plans to have like a actual setup, backdrop, etc.?
eventually, I
Yeah.
think so. I
Yeah.
think that'd be really cool.
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah, right now we just kind of do it. We kind of do it wherever. We've
Yeah.
done the go-to was my office at my house. I think that's a nice setting. That was Thomas's call, and I think Ryan liked that a lot. We did one in the Yukon store as we were doing build out to kind of have a little bit different setting. We did one right when we got the keys to the warehouse. We did an episode here, and we've kind of transitioned to doing them here now. This is the first one we've done in the back with the
Yeah.
garage door open. I guess we did a couple in the patio, smoke cigars with Teach and Patrick.
Yep. So we've done some back, but at your house, like
Yeah.
that was a go-to for a while. It's kind of nice to have a kind of a home base for it. And
Yeah. I like changing the setting though from
Yeah.
time to time.
I
Kind
do
of
too.
keeps it interesting. So
I think it's cool to do it in the warehouse. Just obviously we did it, but it's just like that's where the work is. You know what I mean? Like behind the scenes.
Mhm.
Like
And that's such a big part of it. Like when we first started talking about doing the podcast, a big one was it's like have this just be us talking and they're just as a camera. And
Yeah.
so it's kind of like we saw a desire from customers to just want to be in on conversations, right? They just wanted to know like, oh, what's the what do you guys like? Like, what's the conversations like? And this is obviously no different than any conversation that we were having right before we started filming. But so I think having that where you're kind of peering into the lives of us and the guests, I think kind of having the warehouse be like a backdrop or at least part of the podcast too allows another view into where the traditional person's not going to just be here. You know?
Right.
Yeah, Alfonso posted something. I think he may have posted it from Mike, or you heard it from Mike, or maybe he didn't, but I've heard Mike say it as well. But before somebody buys from you, they're going to buy into you, right? And maybe not always, but you understand it, you get it. And so like having these conversations, like they're going to buy into you. And if they have bought into you or bought from you, what's going to keep them coming back?
Right.
Buying into you, right? I support companies and brands and just things sometimes I don't even need just because I'm going to support that person or that company, right? I'm going to buy into them.
Well, that gum that we tried earlier, by the way, I feel great on it.
Dude,
right?
right?
It was
no jitters.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
Great.
150 milligrams of caffeine in one of those pieces of gum.
Yeah. Shout out Bash Mouth.
Nice.
Yeah. I thought it was pretty tasty too. I like the texture on it.
Yeah.
So.
I've been a pre-workout. That's my pre-workout right
Nice.
now.
Yeah.
I'm not training like anything. I think I've trained like maybe twice in the past month. One of them
when
was
you
today.
do.
Well, when I do.
We did say retired IFBB
Hey.
products. So.
Hey.
Yeah.
Have you tried any of the whiskey that I dropped off?
We actually did on an episode. We did all the docket rum. We did all three of them. We did a little
Those
flight
were
of all.
good.
Yeah, they
Dude.
were tasty.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
What's cool? Do you know the story behind like how I even came upon? Is it Docket or Ducket?
It might
Ducket.
be Ducket. Yeah.
So at Summer Smash 2 years ago, I think it was, Teach invited me out, and he brought that guy Demetrius Kane, I believe, is the guy.
It's a cool name,
dude. Bald head, like beard,
Yeah.
and his family is from Louisiana and had sugarcane farms there. That's where they make it from. And this guy like got the copper mined in the Ozarks, made the equipment that he distills it for, like all the things. And so Brian had this guy out with all the other retailers that come out. I'm not a retailer, but all the retailers that came out.
Yeah.
And he was presenting his product. And essentially, from my understanding, Brian was just trying to show them like the passion behind this guy's product and how he kind of talked about it and spoke about it the same way they would talk about their stores and try and help the community, etc. Just really cool. And so we got to try it all there. And it was just a cool experience. I think we had like the tequilas that they do as well. Una Vida.
Yeah.
And it was just a cool experience to be able to be a part of that. I'm not a retailer, obviously, just friends with Brian. But that's how I met Demetrius. And then I had a party for my wife, a surprise party. I was like, I don't know why. I just want some of this fucking.
Yeah.
And I bought into him, right?
Right.
So I wanted to buy from him.
Right.
Really fucking. Really
it
good,
is.
dude.
It's very,
Yeah.
well, and it's funny that you bring that up because it wasn't necessarily a motivator, but it was more like you just notice it once we started talking about it. Like I just bought an engagement ring, so I notice every woman's engagement ring right now because it's just on my mind still. But I didn't necessarily ever think about it until now that we've started doing the podcast. But it's how many people come in and say, oh, I really want to try Accent Sledge. And you're like, oh, okay, cool. What got you an Accent Sledge? He's like, well, I just been watching the podcast, and he seems like a really cool guy. And so want to support him. And it's like, oh, I get it now. It's like you see these people, like you're saying, it's like by having the podcast, it allows people to have that, that peer into their lives and then get to see the conversations and how they talk. And it's like every one of us, feels like to an extent they know what it's like to have a conversation with Joe Rogan because like you've listened to how many hours, a lot of people have listened to how many hours of like Joe Rogan podcasts.
Never,
like,
none.
Really? You don't seem to cut. But it's like one of those, it's very real how often I hear that and you're like, oh, that does make sense. It's like, once people again, because it is that sense of knowing you and that sense of like closeness is what people want to support.
Yep. Especially for me, because I don't do any of the outward stuff on my social. I'm very recluse, right? I don't do much of it. So
I naturally am as well.
Yeah.
It's a job for me.
Dude,
too.
it's so tough. And with the kids, it just, that's my barrier to entry or my excuse. I'm like, I'm being a dad. Sorry.
Yeah.
Right. And when in reality, it's like, it's part that and a lot part me.
Yeah. Well, and I think that kind of like really reverberates for me, at least, into how many conversations I've had, less so now, I think, with our version of success that we've succeeded that we've achieved so far, but is how many people were like, oh, supplements are an online game. Supplements are, it's going to be all Amazon. It's going to be all this. It's going to be all that. And there are ways to have people get to know you, through podcasts or whatever. But I think a massive amount of our success, and I think Kevin would agree with this, and any employee that we have, is that you come in and you get to know our people. You get to actually become friends with them. It's somebody that's right in front of you, and like having those conversations and those buy into people kind of moments has been, I think, a massive part of, why we've gotten to where we are. And so it's always been interesting to me when people have said like, oh, like the brick and mortar supplement stores they're never gonna make it because of online or because of X, Y, and Z. And it's like, I just don't believe that. Like and I think we're obviously, a version of proof of that, at least for us. But it's like, I think people crave that. People crave that closeness. People crave that, like, I buy from my buddy.
I think
Kevin.
That's a huge aspect, especially to bringing people back in the store. I do think one thing will continue to stand true, and this one is definitely no credit to us, but I think we are starting to see more and more generations that crave instant gratification. And as fast as Amazon can get you something, if you're on your way to the gym, can't get you your pre-workout that fast.
Right.
So when people are out of protein, they know they can come and get it from us that day. So again, not anything, as long as we keep things in stock, we're doing our job on that aspect. But that is one kind of peace of mind aspect for me is that that people want more and more instant gratification.
Well, and I agree. I think there's something inherently in us that, like, around a campfire, sitting around talking, people want that, and there's less of that. So if they're able to go somewhere and get that in person, they might not even know it, but they're going to be inclined to go and do that again and seek that out again because they had a positive reinforcement from it, right? And so then they continue that cycle to do it. And again, as long as you just get them in the door, right, then you can continue to build that upon that relationship.
Right.
Well, and that's what happens. I mean, I had a customer in today who this is his second time ever coming into the store, but the first time he came into the store, him and I ended up having a 2-hour conversation, like with the training that he does, and he's also like a competitive like shooter and all these things. And we started talking about what's the stuff that Patrick does. Patriot
Games,
the Patriot Games, and started talking to him about that because he does a lot of he does that training on its own. And I was like, oh man, have you ever heard of the Patriots? And he's like, yes, I have. And then this all turned into this like 2-hour conversation about shooting, about lifting, about jujitsu that I do. And then he started talking about, because he was special forces. So he starts talking about, like him going to these different places and doing these trainings.
And now he'll come to Sample Triad and he'll probably want to meet Pat, right? Like, kick it off there, build a relationship there, right?
But he came in tonight, and like the first thing I said, I was like, oh, what's up, man? Like, you been shooting recently? And he was like, dang, man, like, yeah, I want, and it's like, but it's those kind of things where it's like, that's the gratification that people feel, where it's like, oh, like, okay, this guy actually gave a shit. Yeah, he actually, right. I haven't seen that guy I didn't see him for 3 months, but it was like, man, like, no, your conversation left an impact on me too. Like, this was a huge, like, I loved our conversation. I remember it vividly. And so I think when people get that, you get such an unpersonal touch so often too in different businesses, where I think having like the ability to do that by talking to our customers face to face is something that will always prove an advantage for us.
100%.
When you have the hand up too, so you're in the fitness industry, right? So this typically coincides with like physical fitness, how somebody feels about themselves, how they feel they look as well. And so like if you can create a positive, lasting experience, what are they're either coming from or going to the gym or exercising or something. They're on the journey, right? And so you're positively reinforcing that by building a relationship. And so it's like you're feeding that engine that's making them feel good. Well, why the fuck wouldn't I go back to that?
Yeah, right.
And my time at Nutrex, dude, I used to go into stores all the time in Texas, and I'm not going to point anybody out specifically. There are a lot of great retailers in Texas, and there are a lot of bad ones, or there were, because I don't even know if some of them are in business anymore. And just having somebody at the front counter that just to check people out. The stores are a mess. I've said this to you over and over again, and like it's such a great market of people with expendable income,
Mhm.
with diversity that are into fitness, specifically Dallas, that just they're not being taken care of to the
Yeah.
level, for example, that you guys are here, that we know they are in the Midwest and S2s, right?
Yeah.
And so having my experience and traveling all over the US, I'm like, man, this market is just what's going on, right?
Right.
So when I would hear people say, oh, it's dead, it's dead, I'm like, you're lazy.
Yeah.
You're not accepting the challenge. And honestly, like it's a gift. Like everybody's running this way, run that way.
Right.
Mhm.
Like, what are you doing?
It's a really interesting perspective because you have been in so many different supplement stores,
Yeah.
like doing that, I think, obviously won't name names or anything too, but I remember there was a supplement store that myself walked into one time. I don't even remember, we were getting something from them. But anyway, I walked in there and opened the door. They probably had, if they had 3 sets of lights, 2 of them were off and they were open. And the kid behind the counter literally has his head down and like down, like he's taking a nap. And when we open the door, he goes, "Hey, what's up?" And then put his head back down. And you're just like, "Oh, wait, this is who I'm competing against?
Yeah.
Like this is what I have. This is the standard I have to beat." Like,
I get frustrated at our employees if they don't say hello quick enough.
right.
Like you've waited 1.5 seconds and you should have done it in 1.
Yeah.
So I had the perspective of being that asshole. So when I was in Southeast Missouri in Cape Girardeau, I worked part-time. I was a part-time trainer. I was finishing my my undergrad, and I was working at a local supplement store there.
Mhm.
But I had no training. I had no idea what I was doing
Yeah.
whatsoever. I was like terrified of sales, and I would sometimes have one customer a day.
Right.
But like I was in that, so I have like and that was that was like as S2s were starting to blow up.
Right.
They didn't have, there was no stores in Cape. We're just about maybe 90 miles south.
Yep.
Or north, no south. And but I had that perspective. I kind of bounced around. Like I was that dirtbag, but then I saw them do really, really well. I would stop in the stores on the way to Kansas City, and then I got my job, et cetera, et cetera. So like seeing it full circle, it's like, no, it's a people thing. Like they can absolutely be successful. And in my opinion, right now they can thrive.
Yeah.
No, that is a good point. Yeah, is even if you can provide that instant gratification, it doesn't mean that you're going to be successful because there are a lot of stores that aren't. So,
Right.
but I think a good example and a good testament of like why I believe what you guys are both saying is, man, I get excited when I go, I need to buy. Obviously, before Alyssa was pregnant, I need to go buy a bottle of wine, or she needs a bottle of wine, and I'd be like, "I'll go get it for you." Like, I want to go
Yeah.
up to the wine barrel, and I want to talk to Jance because Jance is a close friend, and I walk in there, and he knows me by name, and he asks me how I'm doing, and I have a genuinely enjoyable conversation with him, and it's like, and I'm just buying wine for Alyssa.
Right.
Like, I'll go out of my way to go do that.
Right.
So replicate that in the stores, and
Right.
obviously what you guys done,
Right.
and then
Right.
all of a sudden, boom, community, right?
Right.
Easy.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That is it's a cool thing though, man. It's cool to experience. And I think, and you know this as well as anybody, and some I'm sure we've talked about ad nauseum on here, but it's like, it's just finding the people, right? Like when we interview people, it is cool supplements, cool fitness, cool whatever. But it's like, hey, do you actually just like give a shit about people? Because like, if you can do that, then like everything else
you
is-
teach.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
we can figure the rest out
Yep.
along the journey. Like you'll be in training for long enough, you'll get all this down. We'll force you to know all this stuff. But it's like you literally pass a test like to make sure you know all this stuff. But it's like, can you be, that person? And we have, it's funny because we've always talked a little bit more privately, Kevin and I, but it's like we have almost 2 styles of employees that we have, and we call them like fishermen and like netmen, where it's like we need people who can go out in the community and pull people in.
Yep.
Right. And then I need the people that like when they come to the store, they are like, those are my net guys. Those are the ones that like, okay, now that you're here, we've got you, like in a positive way. Like
Sure.
it's,
How can we serve you?
how can we serve
Yeah.
you? Like, how do I maintain this relationship? And so we're always talking about like dynamics that we have at stores. Like, okay, hey, what is this store missing? Like, or when we're potentially shifting employees around, it's like, hey, okay, you know what? We need a touch of charisma here. We need another fisherman out here. We need, we've got plenty of people, we've got plenty of good net guys, but we need a fisherman there. And it's like, how do we pull more people into the store? And a lot of that comes through the dynamic of sometimes a single employee, but it's like having those correct ratios and people. And obviously all of our employees are amazing and do great at both things, but they have like more inclined for certain things. And so it is really interesting finding those dynamics of like who to hire and like what we need at the moment. And then shuffling them in the stores that also make sense for, not having off ratios of, who we have where.
I'll have to say that you guys actually rubbed off on me through osmosis. So obviously Alfonso's great in person with people, right? Like just phenomenal. And I've worked Arnold's, Europa's, Olympia's, a number of them, right? For various companies, Nutrex, Gas, Better Bodies, Gaspari, etc. And small shows, big shows. And I'm just not that. I've never really, I'm kind of, Nutrex, I was like the security person. I would just sit there and like tell all the weird dudes that they couldn't come here and take a picture with the girl. They had to get in the line first, right? Or sometimes the guys. And so, yeah, no, literally sometimes the guys.
Yeah. I believe it.
But, so I go to an event. I forget which one it was. And like Alfonso's just hitting home runs. So I literally just stepped back. And what I did realize as well, and this happened to me, and maybe I'm talking on my ass, maybe I'm wrong, but like at events now for Pride, if we're working them and I'm present, I can hear people talking like they kind of like fumble their words. Maybe they want to say it like the way that I do or present it or whatever it is. So I've stepped back. But I've stepped back so maybe they're more comfortable, right? Whoever it is, but also to listen, and specifically to Alfonso. It's the way that he like articulates or builds a conversation or builds a relationship, ask them where they're from. Nothing about Pride at all. Just asking about them. And I'm like, so I take that, and now with my knowledge of the brand and of the products and everything, just hitting grand slams. But I was able to remove my ego and say, dude, this kid who's 10, 12, however, 13 years younger than me, like got this, pretty well, figured out. Yeah. And a lot of that, it's just himself. And then I know that you guys helped, the environment helped him to kind of like maybe bring it out of him a little bit more. But it's rubbed off on me. And so I go to events and I'm like,
Alfonso is very good at it.
Yeah, dude, he's so good.
A stud.
He did have to work to build that skill, but he picked it up quick, and he took it so far. He got very good with his customer service. Alyssa used to compliment him all the time.
It's wild.
I think you're better than you're giving yourself credit for, though, man. Because when you did used to work for Nutrex, I remember every time you would come in walking through the door, especially because you were still living in Texas at the time, we'd see you every couple of months or so. I would just instantly know that like, I'm not about to get anything else done, but I'm going to thoroughly enjoy the time that you spent. Cause you just come in and it just like, you'd sit down at the table in the corner and just hang out. And I was like, and I just loved those conversations. Cause like, you drop off some samples for Nutrex and talk about the products a little bit, but that wasn't even 5% of our conversation. No. And like, legitimately, that was probably why we even carried and sold any Nutrex at all, man, was because you did so well at that. And I remember thinking at one point in time, I was like, man, like we'd be so lucky. Like any company would be so lucky to have Shaun as their wholesale rep, man, because he just kills it, man.
Well, I appreciate it because my numbers didn't show. Kind of a hard product, a hard company to sell, though, right? Yeah.
Kind of a rebranded.
Dude, every like couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
I mean, they're doing it pretty. Yeah.
How are they doing these days?
Not as good. They're a legacy brand. They used to do close to like back in I think the early 2000s. They were close to $100 million brand.
Wow.
Like they were cranking, doing really well international. That's where they still do decently well.
Yeah.
But now from the top down, things have just they're just facelifts. Changing this, changing that. No consistency.
Yeah.
So I learned a lot there. I was there for 4.5 years. And more importantly, I built a lot of great relationships with one of my best friends. We started together, and then he moved on to VP of International, and then VP of All. And
nice.
Brady, and then now he works for Astroflave, and really good friends with him and Brian. And I mean, Brady's like my confidant. Like if I'm struggling mentally with some stuff, which I was last week, like calls me up, we talk. He drives back and forth from Jersey to Long Island or somewhere in New York where he's at. It's a couple hour drive. And lets me bend his ear and gives me some advice and kicks me in the ass a little bit. Yeah. And it helps tremendously. Did the same thing when I was bodybuilding. The same thing as well. He was there. Yeah. So very good friend. So I'm, it being there was extremely important for me.
Sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, we could probably say the same thing about being at S2, man.
Oh,
The
yeah.
amount that we learned.
Oh,
Yeah. Like we've got the common sense on
super valuable.
generally what's right and what's not right. But the strategies overall, man, the extras that you kind of add in there to really go above and beyond it.
Mhm.
We learned quite a bit.
One is, I think it's just like an overall mindset that we had there is something that is like, if we took anything from them, it was this. And it's just like, just go the extra mile. Like
Mhm.
any opportunity, like be searching for the opportunity to go the extra mile, and like it'll present itself.
Yeah.
And I think that was just something that was consistently done there through a million different things. But that was like, it was a competition of who could go the furthest for a customer, like who could do the most, right? And I think that kind of, and then they awarded it, and they did, Kevin won to go the extra mile award one time. We were waiting on a shipment of, what was it, the cortisol product?
Yeah. Was it maybe
It was Downtime PM.
either Downtime or C21 at the time?
I
can't
think it was
remember.
Downtime.
Probably Downtime.
But it was like we were waiting on that, and people were wanting to buy commander packs at the time, but we didn't have any Downtime. And so I'm telling Kevin's story here, but once Kevin decided to write down all the names and addresses of the people who wanted it, and then when the shipment came in, he drove around and hand delivered all the Downtimes to all the customers that had bought them.
Probably still customers to this day.
Yeah. Oh,
Probably.
yeah. 1000%.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's one thing that I've taken from Alfonso in regards to like the back end. Despite being frustrated with either the situation and or the customer, right? Maybe they are out of line, or maybe it is your fault, right? As far as the company messed up or this, that. But like, he can be frustrated, but still go the extra mile.
Mhm.
Me, I
Yeah.
wear it on my sleeve.
Yeah.
So like here recently, the past couple of years, I've been working on removing my ego from these
Mhm.
situations, right? Because it's unnecessary, and it's never been a bad investment to just go the extra mile. Now, I will say there's been a few times like a wholesaler was like disrespectful to Alfonso. Fuck the extra mile.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
yeah, and you're not going to be like, especially because I know his intent.
Yeah.
I know his nature.
Yeah.
And like, in like, so then I got to step in and be like, you're not going to talk to him that way.
Yeah.
You're like, you can talk to me that way, and I don't really care. Like, whatever. But
You're more angry that they're talking to Alfonso that way
Yes.
than they would be to you.
Yeah. I don't care. I don't care how much you're spending with us. I don't
Yeah.
care. It doesn't matter to me. You're not going
Right.
to treat him that way.
Yeah.
You're not going to do it. But he can. That's what I learned from him, is like, just put a smile on your face. You can be a little frustrated with it.
Yeah.
We can kick the can back and forth. But then he goes, and it's never been a bad investment.
Yeah.
Never.
Nice.
Never.
Good. Did you at least starting out, and obviously you've got two little ones at home, and are full-time taking care of both of them on top of Pride Foods now. Did you have to make some trips, some wholesale trips when you first started with Pride Foods? Because obviously you have D2C is really where you started, but also got into wholesale on your second order. I'm still very proud that we were the first wholesale account.
Ooh.
Yeah.
You drove that shipment that came in and got delivered. You unpacked it the night before sample try it and didn't sleep. Well, you did sleep
On the road while I was driving there. Fuck. It was rough.
Yeah,
That was rough.
we showed up at I know it was like kind of on the fence if you were going to get stuff in time or
Yeah.
not for sample triad to be able to launch Pride Foods in the first retailer, because
Yeah.
you'd had it out for at least a few months at that
Yep,
point in time, and it was on the fence. And then we woke up early for sample triad. We all show up in the parking lot, still dark out, and there's someone parked right out front of our store where we're supposed to put tents, and we're like, this motherfucker. Who parked their car here? It's the only car in the parking lot, and we like are rolling up, and we're like mean mugging this car, and then the door opens, and Shaun just rolls out of it.
I parked there because I didn't want to oversleep.
Yeah.
I was like, somebody will wake me up,
Yeah,
right?
right.
Like, I was so tired. Like, so those.
Yeah,
listen-
you wake up and the events going
Yeah.
on all around you, like, oh shit.
And so for people listening that don't know the story or watching, it's we were promised product. It was the first time that we had started experiencing delays. It was a second order, and we were told it was going to come for a couple of days. Then that Friday, we were told it was going to come, and the goalpost got moved like probably 6 times that day.
Oof.
The box truck got stopped at the weigh station. It was too heavy, and one of them, they didn't have a lift gate. I forget. Anyways, they had to go ass to ass to transfer. They had to send a box truck from Dallas at like 2 a.m. to meet them there. Cause I was like, you are delivering tonight.
Yeah.
And they were rolling pallets over like
between the
Yes.
between the crevasse of
Right.
the two trucks.
Yeah,
Jeez.
ass to ass.
Yeah.
And it's some guys from like, I think Nigeria or something. I can't understand. So they show up residential area because we're warehousing out of the garage.
Yeah.
And
Totally
I'm,
legal.
yeah, right. And I'm like, HOAs love that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, hey man, is this gonna be loud? No, it's not loud. I'm okay. And I'm talking, dude, like we have it on video. Like Jess is videoing me, and like they're slamming shit around.
Oh no.
So and we have my daughter at this point, and she's not, maybe a year and a half old or whatever she is. And I told her, I said, hey, and I think it's like 10 pallets. Mind you, I had to unpack the pallets by hand and put them on the shelves. And she's just exhausted. And I'm like, hey, just go to bed. She's like, no, you need help. I'm like, you're gonna need help tomorrow, and I can't be here.
Yeah.
Go to bed.
Yeah.
So I unpacked 10, I'm pretty sure it was like 10 pallets, 15 pallets by myself, like unloading them in the garage and then get ready. And I'm like, hey, and she's like, well, I'm like, I'm just going to go and like sleep in the truck, like in the parking lot. She's like, go to sleep. I'm like, no, I don't even know if I took a shower. I may have. And I just took off, but like the expectation was I was going to be there. And when I'm weird, like, if that seed's already planted, I'm going to be there. Like I will be so pissed if I'm not there.
Yeah.
Regardless
do
of anybody.
everything in your power
Right.
to be there.
Yeah. So,
Unloading 10, 15 pallets by hand. You know what that is? That's the grinds. That's the rice and
Yeah.
grinds.
Hey. Let's go ahead and end it on that one.
So I kind of skipped past my moved past my question, but was there a lot of work with wholesale when you were first getting going? When you first opened it up to retailers? Any trips?
No. I mean, because of my experience with Nutrex and having one, the relationships, and then two, that gap that I gave myself in regards to not going wholesale, I was able to learn the shipping.
Sure.
And we were under an umbrella in regards to our shipping capabilities, getting our account number. So like there was some legwork and like understanding how to ship it. But outside of that, it was pretty seamless. It's because of the experience that I had with Nutrex.
Sure.
And learning. And I'm pretty sure I like bounced some stuff off of a few friends. Maybe Mike was one of them in regards to like shipping and doing it accurately. But there was nobody else here locally, and I wasn't. I mean, I think maybe in Texas because there was a little bit of layover when I was with Nutrex still, but not much. And so, and plus, like I say it as much as I possibly can when talking about it, but the support that I've gotten from the fitness industry based off of my relationships when in sales, and then my relationships and my friendships that I built from competing, I just had all the support in the world, right?
Yeah.
It made life much easier. Didn't make it easy, but it made it much easier than it would have been without it, for sure.
With getting started without knowing anybody or having any relationships, or I think people tend to underestimate that with like the work that you put in before Rice and Grinds and Pride Foods was ever even a thought. Is your bodybuilding days, all the people that you met and built relationships with, your time at Nutrex, everyone that you met and built relationships with there is. It was actually Alfonso at one point that was talking about Doug Miller and Core Nutritionals and Nutrition Corners, and they were like popping up stores like crazy, launching all these new products, moving into bigger warehouses. And he's like, man, they're blowing up. He's like, what are they doing? I'm like, well, dude, he spent 15 years becoming one of the best natural bodybuilders in the world.
Yeah.
How do they say it? Your reputation precedes you, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I didn't think of it that way until Alfonso brought that up maybe a year or so ago. I think it was me, him, and Jess were talking, and he was like, yeah, that work that essentially you laid that groundwork way before this, and I didn't realize that, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
But no, it's very true. I was going to say something. I drew a brain for it. Can I get the letter real quick?
Oh yeah.
What was it about? Good catch.
I agree. That was a good catch.
I'm with you. While you're thinking about that too, one of the things is like, I think there's times where I don't necessarily think we forget, but I think even for us, like in our own small way of starting out with S2 and the relationships that we built there have led into so many things that for a company the size that we are, we probably shouldn't have. You know what I mean? Especially when it comes to Define Nutrition, like whether it's like Bruce, like our broker, and it's like, there's a very short list of companies that Bruce works with, and we are, in comparison, size-wise, tremendously different. And it's like the reason why that exists is because of a relationship that we had previous to that from working for Andy and Sal and all them, like kind of led us, and then us doing well when working with Bruce on, you know, when he was at the manufacturer, and then it's that kind of all led into him being in the position that he is with us now. And it's such a benefit. I mean, like, how many times have we praised like having Bruce on our team?
We wouldn't even know he existed,
right?
Unless we had worked at S2 prior,
right. And it's like in those relationships and those things, and like he said, your reputation precedes itself. It's like us, you know, and you more than anything, but like the company, I should say, when I refer to us, is like, we did things the right way when it came to working with the manufacturers. We were paying bills on time. We weren't messing with people. We were placing orders. We were being serious about stuff. And then that led him to being like, oh yeah, I'll work with you guys. Like you guys are worth our time. You're worth my time.
Yep.
Right.
And then it's like, but you start looking at the short list of companies that are with them, and you're like, boom, boom, boom. And you're like, then there's Define, and then there's, you know, this and this and this, and it's like no knock on us, but it's like
good company to be in, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Like we are on a roster that, like, comparatively, like if there would be no reason we would be on this roster without the relationship we had established.
If there was
prior.
a starting lineup, we would be fourth string probably.
Yeah. So what I was going to say is
that's out of only 2 brands.
Is the relationships that I built in the fitness industry that, like, for example, I'll just name one guy, Chris Total, for example, right?
Mm-hmm.
Great coach, great guy. And that has helped. And so in regards to retailers, that helped pull it off the shelf, and it wasn't even on the shelf. People still walk in and they're like, hey, you know, you carry rice and grains. So we don't have anybody headhunting wholesale anymore.
Yeah.
I used to kind of do it. Alfonso did it a little bit, and it's just, they're coming to us now.
Nice.
And we'll eventually change that a little bit when we have the bandwidth. But it's because of those relationships. And I had to pull back. Initially, I gave away so much product, and it was never a bad thing, but it got to the point where it's like, I'm giving away product and we're out of stock, right?
Yeah, right.
But I wanted people to have it. I wanted it in their hands. I wanted to take care of them, and I just wanted to give it away.
Yeah.
And that came back to us because of those relationships, right? I mean, I've overnighted stuff for competitors to make sure they have it on time, and spent 5 times the cost of the product.
Sure.
So forth and so on. So we've just been taken care of by a lot of those coaches and or influencers or what have you. Like to have Cutler like post for like it's wild, dude.
Yeah.
Wild, right? And to get a text message or a voice message from him, and just like, sometimes you don't feel like you deserve, like, why are you doing this for us, for me, right? So just extremely grateful, and just try to do right by everybody, but especially people that are going to go to bat for us, right? Because it goes a long way.
Yeah.
You don't realize it until you're in there and you realize, like, holy shit.
Right.
Yeah. Your fucking phone starts blowing up. You're like, oh.
Yeah. I remember when we released the Chris Bumstead video of saying, like, to get Raw and Revive at Triad. And people were like, huh?
Yeah. Yeah.
And we're like, oh yeah, you know, friend of a friend.
Yeah.
Well, especially now that we understand social media, and those people, that's their business, it's their livelihood, right? So they're gonna go out on a limb, or they've spent their time building this following, this audience, these people that believe in them, especially the really good ones, right? Like Chris, like Jay. And then they extend you an olive branch. You're like, fuck, because you know that all the work that you've put into it, and they've been doing it a little bit longer. It just, man, the gravity of the weight of it, right?
Yeah.
All you can do is just send out more love and be grateful for it, right? And then and I've been in a few scenarios here lately where, like, Chris, they launched Drink More, and he's been so supportive of me. Like, I'm on a text thread with his partners, and any way I can help them as far as like shipping and wholesale and like whatever at any given time. And just because Chris, like, he's done that for me, I can do nothing but just send it back, man.
Right.
And no quick pro quo. I don't want anything for it. I don't scratch my back, do nothing, man.
Right.
And it feels so good. And it's honestly, it's like, I tell them often, I'm like, man, like any questions you have, please send it my way. Cause like I'm getting the ability to fill is it the karma bucket, right? Like just do a good deed, makes you feel good. That's all I want from it.
Right.
Period.
I mean, dude, I think that's a huge lesson though, because I think that's a big reason that we work so closely with you. And then, when someone's coming in and they're like, and they just glance at the Pride foods for a second, anybody that knows you in the store is just like, have you ever tried the Pride foods before?
Right.
It's great. You should get it. And they're like, what? I just caught it out of the corner of my eye.
I just walked past it.
But it's because, anytime we ever, like, even anytime I have like a question for you, even you go above and beyond to help me out and send me contact info and put in a good word or this or that. Man, I could probably name a dozen examples of times that you've done that, man, that it's, that I think when you do that, a lot of times, man, you get that back tenfold sometimes.
Sure. Yeah. Well, what I relate that to is like in my life, like if we go like my early childhood development, I was never without somebody extending. I needed it. And it was always like a friend's mom or a distant relative or something. There was always something just because of the way I grew up. And if I didn't have those influential people, those people maybe for a day or a minute or whatever it was, then I wouldn't be where I am right now. And where I am is I'm extremely grateful for my family and everything in business. So I just can't help but do that, like, for others.
Yeah.
So,
but I think the reason, at least from my perspective, man, the reason I think people with a name and a following as big as Jay Cutler are doing things like that is because, man, your reputation is just the most genuine good guy that I can imagine, man. So that's how I perceive you, and I think that's how a lot of people perceive you.
Well, wait till you get to know me.
One question I had: Do you think, because obviously again you're doing a lot of wholesale, you're doing a lot of D2C through a number of different avenues, on more direct online sales, do you feel like you had kind of the same effect off the get-go of that, of people buying it because they knew you, or did you have to put work into that aspect as well?
From wholesale or from D2C?
D2C.
That's the support that we had from the influencers.
Yeah.
Right. I mean,
did you have to put any work to get any support in the first place?
Just give it to them.
Yeah.
I would reach out and like, hey man, I want to give, and I still not once have ever asked anybody to post. Anybody.
That's awesome.
Now there are people that we have relationships with, right?
Yeah.
But and like, hey, we'll send you this monthly, and it's still lackadaisical. Like Alfonso would tell you, like I need to be better about like having contracts or whatever it is. But initially starting out, like I never, and sometimes people would say, hey, well, what do you want me to post? I'm like, deal. Just try it. I don't know.
Yeah, right.
If you don't even have to.
I never asked. And so like that, I think people were maybe taken back. They're like, well, this dude's not even asking me. So then out of the kindness of their hearts, like, well, I'll just post about it. And they love the product. Right.
And it was a much more genuine post because of
way more genuine, way more. And then I would just still send. People won't even ask, and I'll still send. send. So I mean that the work was in me just taking care of them. It was never in me having to ask. And some of the reason I didn't ask is, not feeling like a feeling of unworthiness or shy or apprehensive and not wanting to ask, part of it. And part of it was just not really wanting to ask because like I wasn't in the position because, right when we started was in like, it really started to evolve where people were making like a living off of this. Right. And we're barely at the point now where we would be able to consider that, let alone then. So like, I can't pay you anything, but I would love to just send you mountains of rice if you want it. Right. So like, there wasn't much legwork in regards to that, but I have to say that it wasn't just me. The white space, we're the first and only flavored and then organic cream of rice in the world. Right. So like we filled that void and we made a superior product and there's been copycats since, and we still make the superior product, period. I have athletes from other companies that are Olympia stage that we send product to, and I tell them, hey, don't worry about it. I won't tell anybody your name. I won't tell, I'll take care of you, whatever you need. We have, I have owners from other companies that make it across the sea overseas. ordering from us,
Jeez.
right? Like, so we make the premium products.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
We still do. And there are two things that I am evolving the product to add later this year. We're working on formulating that will, like, if you think it can't be better, well, one of them is going to be, I'll tell you one of them. The other one, I won't say just yet, but the organic certification, the USDA. I've wanted it for a while, and it's been, I formulated it to where it's a lateral move, like it's all in line, especially because the rice is organic certified. But we're working on getting that certified later this year. And then the other little nugget, I'll tell you off camera. But but so if you think it can't get better,
you don't get to know.
Yeah, so we're gonna make it even better.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's amazing.
It's the superior product, but you're continuing to evolve and continuing to get better, man. That's what, for anybody that's even trying to compete with you and be as good as you or try and get better, it's essentially impossible because, like, man, we're already 2 steps ahead of you, and we're working on 2 steps more.
Right.
One of the cool things too, when it just comes to just talking about the product in general, is like its versatility is incredible. And so I talk to people all the time because they come in and they're like, hey, I'm really wanting, like, I'm dying right now. I'm like, I'm in this, cut, I'm in whatever. And I'm like, I'm really needing something that can kind of like cure my sweet tooth or whatever. And I'm like, okay, well, here's some options. And it's like, oh, rice and grinds. Like, I've heard of this. And I'm like, okay, here's what you gotta do.
Yeah.
All right, daddy, listen to this. You can take half a scoop of coconut cream pie, half a scoop of chocolate brownie, and you grab that Walden Farms caramel syrup right there. You're gonna mix that all together, and you got yourself a German chocolate cake. And they're like, what? And then they're like, this is incredible. And you're like, yeah, there you go. And then you're like checking the macros, and they're like, I can have this every day.
Yep.
And you're like, go for it, man. Like, and it's such a cool thing because on top of like mixing with your own protein powder, I know Kevin's a big fan of unflavored and mixing with the fine way. It's done that for years. And like people come in and like,
doing the coconut and chocolate right now.
Ooh,
So,
dude, the
like
coconut
it.
is underrated, man.
Very underrated.
Yeah, it's a mix. Like I like mixing it with the other ones, and it's but it's like there's so much versatility to it. And then on top of that, you start adding, because the first thing that happens all the time, and you're no stranger to hearing this, so I'll tell you. But it's like taco. What am I going to do with the taco? And you're like, okay, here's the thing. Like, I don't eat the taco typically by itself.
Yeah.
But putting them in the bottom of a taco, like a taco bowl or like a burrito bowl, it'll blow your mind. And they're like, oh, and you start seeing these like different things that you can do with it. And the versatility is awesome. And it's like, there's so many things you can do with this.
It's the number one seller when we have events. Taco is. And
Really?
Yeah. So, and it is doing okay. But the reason that I say that is because I ordered so much the first time, because I should have ordered smaller and let it. I just, hindsight's 2020, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
when I say I ordered so much, I'm not going to say how much I ordered. I ordered so much, right? Like, and I was leaning into it because a little Mexican character.
You did a lot of promotions for that.
Yeah.
Man. You blew that up.
You
That
made
was-
Alfonso wear a sombrero.
Oh no! I made him wear the taco outfit.
Yeah, that's right.
So good, so good. He's such a good sport.
Yeah.
But no, when we do events, dude, the number one, and Brian was a big advocate. He's like, people, because obviously he's worked tons of events.
Mhm.
People get tired of sweets,
Yep.
get tired of sweets. And so I'm still confident, hopefully we can keep it around, that it will continue to grow, because it's the one that we get crazy reviews for it online.
Yeah,
that's
crazy reviews. So and the versatility within the product is cool, but what's really cool for me is the versatility within the people that it can that can have it.
Right.
Anybody.
It's a sandbox for creative people to
Yep.
do what they want with
yeah,
it.
yeah, of all ages.
Right.
It is a product too that we definitely have a spectrum of products in the store of. I think the best examples are pre-workouts and proteins. The person coming in for pre-workout wants something new every single time.
Right.
They want to try something different. They rarely ever get the same thing twice. But proteins, someone will buy the same brand of protein, the same flavor of protein year
Yep.
after year.
Yep.
And rice and grinds falls on that end of the spectrum,
Yep.
very much so. It's like when people come in, they do a beeline to grab their flavor or just rice and grinds in general. And it's just something that's it's more of a food product than a supplement.
It's a
Yeah.
staple.
Right. That it's just consistent.
Part of your grocery list.
Right. So it's, where all the work that you put in to gain those customers in the first place, a big majority of them will just stick.
Yep.
which is ideal in my opinion.
And that's why I need to have it in stock,
Yeah.
right? I gotta have it. The best way to make
Yeah.
$1 is to keep that dollar, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Right.
fuck.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's obviously that'll be huge for kind of simplifying and that hyper focus. I know we talked about it last time I called you, was kind of that hyper focus and kind of simplifying the options and focusing on keeping it in stock as opposed to having the biggest variety of flavors in the world.
Right.
So.
Yeah, and you know, I should have been more patient even with launching new products, right? That capital should have went towards making sure that we're in stock. And if I had manufacturing issues, diversify even more.
Yeah.
And I had somebody in my ear telling me that, and I just, you don't know what you don't know. You can
Sure.
hear it, but there's a difference of knowing it, right?
You either made
Knowing
that
it-
mistake today or made that mistake tomorrow.
It's gonna
Hearing it and
until you
believing
know
it are two different
Yeah,
things.
right.
So I'm excited to get that. Essentially, what I've been explaining it as is like it's a big ship, and we're changing the trajectory of that ship, and it will end up in a different location. But you have to change those big ships don't just change on a dime, right?
Yeah.
It takes a little bit of time. So now we're starting to put some coal in the engine. The restock starts on the 12th, and every week with the local manufacturer, every week it will the flavor will run a different flavor, and so by the 4th of July we'll be fully in stock.
Nice.
And then looking at getting the single servings probably maybe early fall, late summer.
That's a cool one.
Yeah, and then new flavors, pumpkin spice, etc.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's exciting to me, man. As that's those things that you can't really post about and have people excited about it, but knowing on the back end of like the relief of just having stuff be in stock more consistently is like so exciting. It's exciting for me to hear, man. So
Yeah, we don't have a sale problem, we have an inventory problem. So figure solve that problem. Then I can tackle okay, how do we sell to more people?
Yeah. The sales are there, man.
Yep.
Just it's all on the table. Just be have the tools to be able to just take it all.
It's fun to learn. It's fun, and it costs a lot of anxiety and money is the least of things that it costs, right? Like the everything that you internalize and the frustrations and the impact it has on your relationships.
Seen that gray hair on this man?
Yeah, I pulled a few out while I was getting ready today. But I know you talk about, I think it's your grandpa, how he has a pretty big influence on you, and I mean, man, like that's phenomenal because I'm when I say I'm flying blind, I'm flying completely blind, no understanding of finances or money. I hated talking about money, hated it, despised it. It gave me anxiety,
Same.
right? Like the amount of money that I knew that my dad had was the thickness of his wallet,
Right.
typically on the 15th or the 30th, right?
Mhm.
Because it was cash. Never had a bank account.
Mhm.
And so like learning these things, it's fun, but God, it's a kick in the balls almost weekly,
Yeah.
right? But I wouldn't have it any other way. I'm not.
Right.
I'm certainly not sitting here complaining.
Yeah, sure.
Right. First world problems. I'm not complaining.
Do you have? Obviously, it sounds like I would assume you've become more familiar with finances. Have you started to enjoy it at all, or does it still give you anxiety?
It's not I enjoy what? Enjoy the business part of it?
Yeah, working, with just your general cash flow,
Oh, it's fun. Yeah, knowing the numbers now and seeing that and
understanding why it works, the way
right,
it works.
Yeah, percentages and
Yeah.
just the whole
It's like a game.
it's like a game, dude. It's just a money game. It's
Mhm.
this is kind of fun. If I put this here, I can expect that, and
Right.
especially we have a little bit of time under our belt now. That part is fun because I've
Mhm.
always enjoyed like we talked about video games earlier, right? It's kind of like a game.
Yeah.
A sniper, right?
Yeah.
Calculated, win.
And then you dissociate away from the amount of money because you're just these
Oh,
are
yeah.
cartoon made up
Oh,
things.
yeah.
We spent how much?
Yeah.
Playing Monopoly. Over
Yeah,
here.
right. Yeah, this was 100,000, but it's but just part, and you're just
Yeah.
huh?
Well, especially retroactively, looking back, I'm like, how much did that cost me last year? Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Did I even? Fuck.
Yeah.
I had that much? What? No.
How many
No.
cars could that buy?
No, can I re-roll the dice and go
Yeah.
back? Fuck.
Right.
Still, not complaining. It's still better than
Oh, yeah.
better than anything else I'd probably be doing.
Well, it's like the post you made the other day of it just being you sitting on the couch and, Birkenstocks and headphones and just working on stuff. And it's like, oh yeah, this is like what my life is.
Right.
Like, this is what I do on a day-to-day basis. And you were saying, you know, like, what does the UPS driver think or something like that, where it's like, man, like he probably, you know, thinks like I do nothing or whatever. And it's like,
Right.
it's a super interesting thing, but it's like, no, like I wouldn't have it any other way. Like it's a grind, and it comes with its own, you know, anxieties and its own issues and its own struggles. But it's like the perspective of it is like, oh, but man, this is great. Like,
Yep. The biggest thing that I've been working on to learn the past 2 years, but really honing in on the past like 6 months, 8 months, is to be okay playing the game that I'm playing right now, because I'm trying to do two things that are typically not synonymous, right? I'm trying to be a great present, conscious father and husband, while simultaneously trying to be a very good, savvy business owner. At least from my understanding growing up, those two things didn't really marry that well together, right? It just didn't. And we're in the unique opportunity where like the internet allows us that ability to be able to do that. And so
a little breathing room there.
Right. And so, you know, I don't have to go off to something for 12 hours a day and come back or whatever it is, but accepting that, like, I got to stop and I got to put this baby down, and he may not go down.
Yeah.
And if he does, he may go down for 30 minutes. And so, and then like emails. And so anytime I have Zooms or calls or meetings or whatever it is, I'm like, yeah, we can have it. Just so you know, this is how I play my game.
Right.
And you may get a 5.5-year-old jumping in telling, want to tell you about a unicorn. You know, like if we're going to do business, respectively, that's just how my business is being ran right now, right?
Yeah.
And I try to make it, and my wife, you know, we try to make it as respectful for everybody as possible, but to accept that I am running my own race.
Yeah.
And the biggest thing for me is not to look on social media and like compare myself to somebody else's success, because that's the way that I used to do it. But I'm like, okay, well, I would tell myself, well, if you're going to do that, if you're going to judge yourself based off of like what their success may look like, their highlight reel, do you know that they're a good father, or they would be a good father, or a good husband? Right. And so like those are my measures of success. The biggest ones are a husband and a father, my biggest measures. Right. And I happen to own a business as well, and I want to do great things with that. But the two pillars are husband and father, the biggest ones. And so staying off of social media, because I'm human and I have those human moments where I'm like, fuck, I'm not running as fast as somebody else. Oh yeah, but I'm that guy that only takes one trip into the house with all the grocery bags. Yeah. I'm trying to bring it all with me, right? Yeah.
Well, and I think one of the things that it's not that we've ever not known it, but something that like I continue to at least personally appreciate is, you know, people are so used to seeing that online version of people. And what I know I found, and I'm sure you found it too, and I'm sure you found it too, is like people respect that though. People respect the fact that like, hey, I'm going to be a good dad and a good business owner. And like, if you don't want to do business with me because of that, well, then that's your problem. Right. Where it's like, we've had situations where people have asked us to do something or be somewhere. And, you know, like, we would genuinely love to, but to be honest, we've kind of pushed all our employees right now to about the brink of being cooked. And as much as we'd love to be there, we'll be at the next one. But right now, I just don't know if we can do it. And every time we've had a situation like that, and it's not like it happens a lot, but when we have situations like that, it's met with a high level of respect of like, oh, you give a shit about your people. Right. And like, I appreciate that as a fellow business owner. It's like, okay, cool. Like I see you guys as like how much you genuinely care about your people. And that makes me want to do business with you more, not less. And so I think there's an aspect to that realness where it's like, hey man, like we're doing our best. And like, we're not going to do this at the expense of the people that we have. We're not going to run them into the ground. It's like the more real we are when those situations present themselves, the more people are like, dude, I get it, man. My employees are dead right now. And we're all doing a party after this. Like
all circles back to people buy into you and who you are and who the owner of the company is. And if they know you as a good father and good husband, man, that just gives them another reason to want to buy the product. You know, if it were to come out, you know, that, you know, the owner of this company is you know, they're killing it in business, but you know, they're shitty to their wife and their kids. It's like, man, you got a lot of people that kind of start to stray away from it, you know, whether that's consciously or not consciously, man.
Yeah, that energy, it doesn't go unseen or unnoticed. Right. It doesn't.
It does have a payoff. Like being a good husband and father does have a payoff in business, actually, in my opinion.
No, it does. Yeah. And for me, my perspective of like family unit growing up was, I mean, for lack of a better word, just not there. Garbage, evil, bad, worse, bad, whatever. But so like I can't, like I have that, I missed out in all that. So for me to not have those things, to be there for my daughter, now my son, even my wife, it's a non-negotiable.
Yeah.
Right. And it was tough too, because I haven't been at the warehouse now that my son's been born, because he's with me, right? And we're and initially it was like, well, we'll take him to the warehouse. Now we're out, in North OKC, and so being out there 44 minutes from the warehouse, like initially I told Alfonso, like, yeah, we'll come a couple times a week, and I'll bring this, and I'm like, after we got there, I was like, no, it's not gonna happen, man. Like we'll feed him, get him in the truck just to drive there. To maybe he falls asleep. Do we wake him up? Do we not? Repeat and just leave?
Yeah.
And I was like, the environment needs to be at home. I need to work from that. And so it was hard for me to accept it. So that the accepted piece is like, this is how I'm going to run the race. I am owning my business so I can run my own race. And I had to accept it. And it was hard because like, I love being around Alfonso. Like we have great conversations. And I think it's
he's a fun person to work with.
Yeah, it's great for both of us, right? So like not being there, I was going to lose out selfishly on not being around him as well.
Right.
So, but I had to accept like this is the way that I'm running my race at this chapter in my life. I need to like my family is first.
Yep.
Right.
Oh,
so, and it's been great. It's a struggle. It is a struggle, but it is my struggle. Yeah. And it could be extremely, it's not even worse. It could be way worse off because I have lived worse off. Right. Yeah. So I'm grateful for it.
Well, and you should be grateful that the perspective that you have was found early, right? Like it's always been there, as opposed to it being, your kids are 18 and now you're like, oh, I wish I would have. I could have done this from home.
Right.
Like, why didn't I do this? You know what I mean? That was even into a much smaller degree. But when I had, left being at Triad full time and went to working at the hospital and stuff like that, which I did for 4 years. And I was telling the story today to Kaylin, but one of the main things that you and I talked about when I kind of came to you the day that you were actually coming to me about me coming back full time and doing this was, I said, man, like one day we were both, if we don't do this, you're my best friend, right? If we don't do this, one day we're going to look back on it and be like, why the hell? How could we not make it work? Like at what point did we, like, was this just not something that we could have, like, for whatever small reason or whatever, where it was, and it wasn't even any hard feelings or anything, but it was like, could we really not make this work?
It's probably because you just didn't have that conversation.
Right.
Right. It's just that conversation you need to have. And then from there you go forward.
Right. And it was like, cool. Then we set the expectations with each other on what we wanted. And it was like, we're completely on the same boat. Like we have the exact same vision of this.
It's communication.
Right. And then you're like, and I'm thankful for that. I was talking about it today. Like I'm thankful that it didn't take longer to figure that out because now it's like I've been back for 3 years now, which is crazy. And it's like, man, and I've loved every day of it. Like,
but that sabbatical probably helped, right? Like,
oh yeah,
because
for sure.
It may have calmed like the waters a little bit. I don't know what happened.
No, nothing crazy.
So then you come back and it's like, oh, we're level. We can communicate. We're a little bit older, more wisdom, right?
Yeah,
let's talk.
Right. And I learned a lot, and I learned a lot of different things that are super valuable for us now. I mean, it worked out the way that it should have, but it's, but like, I just remember sitting there thinking like, we're both good at this. Like why, like we will look back and regret not doing this together, like in some fashion. You know what I mean?
When you said that, I 100% believed it.
Right.
I was like, we will regret it if we don't. And the longer we go, the harder it gets.
Right. The harder, and not just, it's obviously a little easier for us, but then it's like reintroducing me into it and like where people feel comfortable and, like somebody doesn't feel like I stole their spot.
Like a dancing partner, if you will.
Yeah. There's a ton to it. And it's like, and that it was funny because that always resonated with me, and it just happened to talking about it today, but it's like, like the blessing for you in this too is like you knew this all along, and that was why this all exists. And it's like, man, I just like the scary thing that happens is, and you're doing it the right way, is like you'll look back and not regret it.
Now, and I forget who says it. Somebody says it on social media. I'm sure multiple people say it. You never regret the time you spend with your kids.
Oh,
never.
Yeah.
And for me, it's not just my kids, my wife as well. But I have to say that I did not always have that perspective.
Yeah.
I've been a lost soul for 30, I just turned 38, 36 years of my life. The
Sure.
past 2 years after Summer Smash, 2022, 2021, whenever that was, I had a big realization that I needed to make some really big changes. But it was because I had my daughter, and she was a mirror.
Yeah.
Like all the things that I maybe I ignored that I didn't like about myself or my personality, or the way I carried myself, or the way I thought about myself, or what I did, or how I talked, or how I treated my wife, how I treated myself, whatever it was. Like it was just a mirror, and I could see like she looks like me, right? But just the way that she just like, we spend a lot of time together. We spent a lot of time together. Even in Texas, we did. I would stay home if she was sick, et cetera, et cetera. I had the luxury to do that. And so I started to like, I couldn't run from it. At least like when I was by myself and it wasn't her, like I could, go bodybuild and like ignore, like I would just focus on this, or I was drinking, right? I don't drink anymore. So like, all these different things, I could just run from it. But when you have a 2-year-old or a 1-year-old or a 3-year-old, and like they're your shadow, and it's a constant reminder. So that perspective, that gift is just recent. And I was like, I have to change. I have to do something. I have to improve upon, because if not, like the neuroplasticity, right? The first 7 years of our lives, it's so impressionable, and she is going to have to unpack things that I am not unpacking now.
Right.
So I had to start that climb of that mountain, so that I can unpack the bullshit, so that she wouldn't have to unpack my bullshit.
Right.
And so the perspective is great, but it's been something that it's only very, very recent that I faced.
But most people, a lot of people, and we all hear the stories and we all see the videos or whatever, but it's the people that, they don't figure it out until they're dying.
Sure.
They don't figure it out until their deathbed. Like, oh, what would you have done different? Like, oh, I would have spent time with my effing family. You know what I mean? Like,
there's the childhood will end at some point. Like you said, like when they turn 18, start leaving the house, like you don't have as much of a chance as you did, the prior 18 years. And obviously this isn't the same, but there was a post, I'm sure it circled around several times years ago, but it was about dogs, about, you'll have your dog for, 10 or 15 years, 10 or 15 years of your life. But to them, that is their whole life.
Their whole life.
Yeah.
And and again, obviously dogs are different than kids.
I know what you're getting at.
But that is legitimately why I walk our dogs every single day, is because they thoroughly enjoy that.
Right.
And I am as patient as possible. I let them sniff whatever they want to. We stop, Stella was this morning, she was sniffing around the garbage that, that someone threw out for like, it was like the old furniture or something. She found a cat in there, and I was like, she's just having a good time.
She's doing Stella stuff.
But it's like, man, like I just to give you 30 minutes of my day to help, at the end of your life as a dog, you can say, I get to go on a walk every single day. It's like, I will be a lot more at peace at the end of your life if I can do this every single day.
Right. And it translates the same way. Like you only have like your childhood ends, just like it's not a dissimilar time range either.
What's crazy is that once you have the kids, you realize that like that 1-year-old ends, that 2-year-old ends, and there you love them. And then you love the new version of them, and you grieve the older version of them.
Right.
And every now and again you get some snippets, and it's like it's a weird like tornado of emotions where you love this, but you miss that. And you like grieve over it, and it's the cutest thing. And it's just, but you fall in love all over again. Every single day is like that, dude. It's wild.
Well, and like, I don't have dogs, I don't have kids, but it's one of those things where, I've heard it a lot just recently because, I got engaged recently to the love of my life, Laurel Beth Church.
This is our first podcast since that.
It is, yeah. So to kind of even tell the story a little bit, kind of leading into where I was going with this, but we were going on a cruise to Alaska with her family. Laura and I have been together for a while, and it was about the time that things were, it's not that I ever didn't know, because I've always known, but it's like the compliment that I always pay to Laurel whenever people ask, like, what was it about her that made you want to marry this person and make you want to be with them the rest of your life? And it was like, for 2 straight years of Laurel and I dating, Laurel has tried harder today than she did yesterday. Like Laurel will try harder for our relationship tomorrow than she did today. And that has been a consistent thing our entire relationship. And that's something that's all I want, is just someone who's willing to give the effort that I would be willing to give. And that's something that she's proved to me time and time again. But when we were going on the cruise, it was like, okay, this all makes sense. Like we're going on the cruise with her folks. Like this will be a really cool thing. And I was trying to figure out when I wanted to do it and how I wanted to do it. And, it's actually, you were a big influence on this, was doing it in Seattle before the cruise actually happened. That way we could be just relaxed and not like trying to do it on the cruise. She's worried, am I wearing the right thing at the right place? It's my
Wait,
spray
did she
tan.
know?
We're engaged.
No, does she know that you were going to?
On the cruise?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah. We've talked all about it. Yeah.
Ah.
Yeah. She knows all about it. She didn't know prior, though. Like, this was all a surprise.
That's
to her.
what I'm saying. So you would have been.
Yeah. Well, she would have been anxious with anticipation because
okay.
she thought, she was like, I think this is what is happening.
Gotcha.
And so she was like preparing, in all the right ways. And so we,
It's good advice.
I started thinking about it, was like, okay, like I want us to be relaxed. I want us to be able to just celebrate. And I was like, okay, I want to do it in Seattle. And it was like, I had, talking about turnaround times, I had ordered a custom ring. I ordered it 10 weeks to the day that we were sailing out. And they're like, shouldn't be any longer than 6 weeks. And I'm like, okay, cool. Showed up 8.5 weeks later with me in a full-blown panic, because at that moment, I'd never actually seen the diamond or the ring in person until the day that it arrived, a week and a half before we left, worth no time to change anything, right? But I started thinking, and I was like, okay, like I want to, I ended up hiring a photographer who did photos and video of the whole thing. They go and they set the place up first. They decorate it all. They, do this. And I was like, okay, where do I want to do it? And I started looking at restaurants and different things. And I was like, just none of this feels right. And I was able to find a website where I could rent the rooftop patio of this apartment building that just overlooks downtown Seattle. And it's just as beautiful. And if you saw the pictures, like it's this gorgeous place. And, I was like, you know what? I think that like just be intimate, just her and I, the photographer, the other girl who was there was videoing it for us. And, just tried to go as all out as I could and tried to do everything. Like the photographer was incredible. Ended up sending us 103 edited pictures.
Wow.
2.5 hours after we had finished the photo shoot. And so it's like, we surprise her. It becomes very obvious after you turn this corner, this big sign that says "Marry Me." Get to see like a video and picture of her reaction, and like us going and actually like, me getting on a knee. There's a whole video. I mean, there's everything to it. And then 103 pictures after that, we did a photo shoot. And then when we got back, I'd had a photo book created in chronological order of the pictures that kind of tell the story. And so that was a surprise whenever we got home, was like she could open the book and it's this full 8x11, all the like
already there.
Yeah,
that's
like
cool.
ready to go. And it's like, it turned out super cool and all this stuff. And it's like, it was very sweet. And people are like, oh my gosh. And I'm like, we get engaged one time. There's one time for us to be fiancés. There's one time. This time will go away. And while that equals to something cooler, in the future when it becomes a marriage, I only have one opportunity. And knowing myself 10 years ago, I would have probably got down on a knee in front of a Taco Bell and like been like, you wanna, and it's like, and that's fine. And that's like a lot of people's stories, but it's like just me and my perspective was like, I can, and it was, it was not cheap,
sure.
Right? And it was definitely an investment, but it's like, I'm looking back on it and it's like, I've never missed a penny of that, of what it has produced already in our relationship, and her excitement over my desire for her through all of that. And it's like, guys, like you're saying, it's like, sometimes it's as simple as walking the dog. Sometimes it's, as big as doing these things, but it's like, just showing that like I take this time with you very seriously, and I want to show you that like I'm willing to do whatever I can to make this special. Again, whether that's a proposal or that's letting Stella sniff a cat, like that's all. It's all in the same thing,
dude. The investments like I get, like the returns on the investment I get in my daughter, and I don't mean by sending her to jiu-jitsu or gymnastics, like. That we have a family contract and we have rules of engagement, and I don't talk at her. I talk with her. I tell her, I respect her and I validate her feelings and all these things. To see a 5.5-year-old like how she can articulate herself, and she can tell me sometimes that like she's not being disrespectful, but she's like telling me that she's like her head's telling her that she doesn't like me very much right now. Like she's communicating to me, and I should be the one that she fears in regards to my perspective as a child.
Yeah.
From my childhood, I should be the one that she fears the most, and she's not. She's comfortable and she's
To tell you that.
safe, right?
Right.
And that investment that you get back from being conscious and being aware and being present, there's no monetary value you can put on it. There's no
Yeah.
time, nothing. It is quite literally the best. And I'm excited for you to go down that, because you think you've been tested and you think you've been educated by business like another human being, and it's the funnest. And it's so worth it. In my perspective, for me, it has been. I know other people maybe don't enjoy being a father as much maybe as I do, but I thoroughly, I'm people try to introduce me, as IFE Pro bodybuilder, this business. I'm a husband and I'm a father.
Yeah.
And above everything else. And the other things I just happen to do, or I have done those in the past, right?
Well, I've brought you up in conversations before with probably a couple of times with our barber and with other people as well. But man, I genuinely look up to you in the way that you handle being a business owner and a father and a husband. Is that I remember, I think you launched Pride Foods just shortly after Kinder was born, right?
She was December 21. Damn, I'm making my ass whoop. 17.
By her too.
Yeah, she was when we moved to Texas, or from Texas, she wasn't even walking yet. So she wasn't even a year old. Yeah. So she's pretty young. Yeah.
It seemed to me, because I know, I was talking to you as you were getting samples and talking about making this product and launching it. And I got excited for you. And it just like you said, man, I get excited every time you grow. It seemed like I think everybody thinks that there's, once you have a child that takes so much time away from your business. I felt like I saw the opposite with you, is that that was extra motivation to work harder at your business, to provide something for your family.
When you realize they're a mirror, your actions are what teach them, right? And so you can say what you want. It's not about what you say. It is very important what you say, but what you do, your actions are so much, especially because growing up, they don't know how to talk yet,
right?
But they can see you, and they know what that means, right? And so the actions, and I can't take myself to the town square and whip myself, because I still am hard on, I want to, and I got to do better.
Sure.
But I don't know if that ever goes away. I'm realizing that now that doesn't go away, as long as I don't internalize those negative feelings and then allow that to come out somewhere else where I'm frustrated, this, that, and the other. I want to be better. I want to keep continuing to do better. And that's why I keep saying this past 2 years I've just been on a pretty lengthy journey to make sure that what she's seeing and now what he's seeing are worth what they're watching, right? What they're looking at. It's been fun. It's kind of getting more.
It's really cool to hear you talk about it though, man.
Yeah.
Because I know, especially for you, you're in a phase of getting ready for this, and so
I'm excited.
Yeah, I'm sure you are. And it's super cool to hear you talk about this and the perspective that you have. And it shows everybody your priorities. And I think that's something that we all know though, in just the conversations that we've had. And on top of that, the conversations we've had, like you said, it's not the things that you've said to me. It's the things I've seen from you. It's you at Sample Triad and Kinder there running around, having a good time and being just a part of it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And her getting to, and she's great when she's there. She's such a, a bag of fun and a genuine enjoyment for everyone on staff and all the people who come. But it's you guys are a team, and there's something that's super cool and unique about that, where it's you involve her in these things because you want her to be a part of them.
Exposure.
Right.
Exposure.
And you can tell the difference in her because of those kind of things. Not that I meet a lot of kids, but it's kids who are experienced with stuff like that. And then just she probably understands, because I think I never give kids enough credit for how smart they are. She probably understands now, but she will truly understand later in life how important to she was in those moments because of what you did, that like you never sacrificed those moments when you had the opportunities to bring her along.
Always, right? There are a few times they're like the CrossFit games. I'm like, oh, we got to wait till she's a little bit older, right?
Yeah.
But like, no, she can come with me, right? I'm packing orders, working at the house. She's there.
Right.
I've had her like taking like barely, and probably I didn't post pictures of it, but I should have had her put clothes on. But she's in a diaper, like taking boxes and putting them at the doors, right? Like I've had her sitting on the packing table in a diaper.
Yeah.
Like
we'll probably scratch this part for child labor laws.
So I put her to work.
Well, so the realization that I had was twofold or two-part. So I realized my upbringing and the negatives that I experienced and what that had. And there could be somebody that plays a victim mentality and a woe is me. And what I did is I realized, oh, well, if that negative, really, really bad environment can do that, what can a good one do? Right? Like there's two sides to it. Right? Like, okay, well, why don't I just try the opposite? And that was the realization, is like, it's so important. Those first 7-10 years, it all matters, but those first years are so important, so impactful. You're literally, the way that I view it as is I'm not a computer guy, by any means. I got Apple, everything is easy, but I'm trying to like build a computer and then code that computer. Like that's their programming,
right? Forever.
Forever. Right. Eventually she'll come to the age where she may want to train, alter, or improve upon some personality traits or things that she'll want to work on. And that's fine. But hopefully she's not having to, again, unpack my bullshit that I didn't that I didn't face and say, okay, let's get rid of this shit. I don't need that. Let's recode that. Let's reprogram that. And so seeing that and realizing the importance of it, it was like, oh, this is really cool. And then like, you're right. Like they are extremely smart and extremely capable. Like I'm like now, because so she, like my son's with us and now we're home educating my daughter, and I'm taking the front of that now until my wife gets out of corporate, and then, we'll work together. We'll do it together, and even the business. But like every morning I have her write her goals down and like for the day. So chores, she was going to work on the iPad for 30 minutes, or she's going to feed the chickens, or she's going to do handwriting, etc. And part of it now is I put business on there. And so I'm going to start working her into like, hey, this is what inventory is. This is how you track it. Dude, I saw a video yesterday with kids like talking about every nerve in the body, and they were like, which one is missing? And like they were showing them diagrams, and the kids were maybe 10 years old, brilliant kids. I'm like, that kid, if they knew inventory, could run my and I'm not saying I'm going to have her do that.
Yeah, sure.
But like,
again, child labor laws don't.
She gets paid.
Yeah.
They are capable of that, right? There's no necessity for them to sit in front of an iPad and watch Bluey, although I hear Bluey's good, or Peppa Pig, or whatever it is.
Right.
Like there's no necessity for that, right?
Yeah.
There's necessity for them to come to Sample Triad and you want a bar? Okay, well, here's the credit card. Go look that individual in their eye.
Right.
Be polite and buy this bar. Say thank you.
Right.
Or go hand out samples. Like you can do these things.
That's my favorite when she does that.
Dude,
she's a big sample giver.
And she wants to give 10 to every person.
I know. She's like, she's running by and she's like, do you want another
you
crispy
better
bar?
take it.
You want another crispy bar? And I'm like, yeah. And she's like, okay, I'll be back. And I'm like, okay. And she's like, got 12 of them. Like,
they're so capable of doing so much more than just sitting in front of a device or sitting over here while we talk, right? Like I let her interrupt, but if she's going to, excuse me.
Right.
And if I'm not at a point where I can stop, I say, well, okay, give me 1 second, and I continue to talk. Or if I am, okay, what did you have to say? Sorry. Yeah. Okay, good. Give me 1 second. We'll take care of that. You're hungry, whatever it is. Come back. Treat her like an individual that she is, not less than.
And they want that, right?
Yeah.
Like, and again, I don't have kids, but it's like, they want that. And it's so interesting, especially, talking about your upbringing and stuff. And it's like, there's got to be a point where, because I hesitate to talk about it too much, but it's like there are things that happen where it's like you either learn from or you learn the anti of like what your parents bring to you. Like you either learn how to do something or at least learn how to not do something. You know what I mean? And so you have to, sometimes people are fortunate, it sounds like yourself, to kind of figure out like, hey, this wasn't the way to do things. And I can at least still learn from that. I can learn what not to do, and learning what not to do is just as much learning what to do. And there's an aspect that like you kind of get that. And I'm sure you're in a part now where like looking back, especially on the things that have happened, where you're like, man, I understand those things even less now. Like why my childhood was like that. I understand this less because now I understand what it's like to prioritize and to put these kids first. And now it's like, this is what life is really about. Like, this is the thing that like, what sounds like you didn't get to have, like you are creating not just for them, but for yourself as well now.
Sure.
And that's a cool thing to hear.
Yeah. I know where you're going with as far as understand less, but because of the work that I've done, I understand it more.
Yep.
So the things that I am doing, right? The reprogramming, the work that I'm doing on myself, with help, without help, my wife, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. My dad just didn't get a chance to.
Sure.
Right. Like it wasn't common knowledge. It wasn't out there. The internet wasn't there, whatever it is. Right. Yep. He just didn't get a chance to.
Sure.
And so I understand it way more from the fact that he was just repeating cycles that was given to him. And I understand that more because up until 2 years ago, I was repeating the same cycles, right? Like, so my cycles heavy on when it was just me and my wife when I was 20, I met her when I was 21, like I repeated a lot of the same cycles. Maybe I didn't take it to the wall like he did on some occasions, certain things with as far as like physical abuse and stuff like that.
Sure.
But verbal and emotional and with the alcohol, certain things, like I did them, right? And so like now I can say I'm not doing those things, but I did those things, right? I lived that same life where I was just repeating them. But I mean, how was I not going to? And that was my programming. That's the environment that I grew up in. I saw and witnessed and or had every type of abuse happen to me. And so why wouldn't I at some point like have weak moments to where those things would come out?
Absolutely.
And there was always an internal like turmoil as far as like not wanting to be that way, but not knowing how to change. It's a weird, awkward situation because like outwardly I am expressing myself in the same programming, but inwardly there's something screaming in me to stop doing these things, stop being this way, stop thinking this way, or stop treating people like this. You don't like it, you hate it. And honestly, that's why like bodybuilding was such a good thing for me. Not from the physical side of it, because like any type of coping mechanisms, like as far as like food, for example, like people just, you cope with food on and on and on.
Sure.
Well, when you're bodybuilding, especially when you're in a prep, like you're not doing any of that. I know it may sound weird, but stay with me. So the longer you get into prep, you don't have those abilities. And then for me, like I just got aggravated and I was short-tempered and all these things. It exposed me for the negative parts of myself that I just hated so much. Right. And so like I had to face them. I couldn't hide behind any. You could do this. I didn't hide behind any of them. And I was exposed, like the way that I was in the gym. I was just like, I gotta train this way. Don't talk to me. I'm an asshole, whatever it was, right? And like just continue. And well, then that problem was I was successful in bodybuilding. So then I got like not addicted, but I got addicted to that success. I'm like, well, I got to keep doing this because I'm really good at it.
Yeah.
I never even really loved bodybuilding.
Getting positive affirmation in ways you never experienced.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. So I just kept doing it and I was really good at it. And I was really good at suffering. So like I can suffer more than anybody and keep doing it. But in reality, like my relationships were deteriorating, specifically with my wife. It just, I wouldn't want to be around me. Why would she? Right. Relationships with friends. What relationships? And I was just like this lonely existence. And I would like wear it on my sleeve that I'm doing cardio at 4 a.m. in a pitch black, garage, like lonely and hungry and blah, 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 all the things. Woe is me bullshit. Right. And so for me, it was the best thing because it pushed me to that edge where, like, for example, alcohol. When I was younger, I could just drink. That was my coping thing. I would just drink. Well, when you're bodybuilding, you're not drinking,
right?
And so you're just those feelings are just exposed, right. And it took me to the breaking point where like I don't like this anymore.
Yeah,
I really don't like this. And how do I fucking change, man?
Right?
how do I change? And then stopping bodybuilding, having the kids, and then you just slow down a little bit, that
Mhm.
realization, right? And you want to enjoy that. You want to enjoy it. And then, I'm on my soapbox here.
No, I like it.
And you said you didn't want to bring it up or talk about it. Yeah, anything you want to talk about.
Yeah,
I'm-
well, I
I'm
just
an
mean
open
like
fucking book.
I say that in the sense of like, I had some issues of my own like in childhood and stuff, and so there are two perspectives that you had, because this resonates with me a lot of like, do you take this and do you repeat the pattern, or do you take this and at least find some kind of positive from it? Is there, you be the fern that grows in the darkness, and it's like there are opportunities to learn and grow in no matter what environment you're in, and being able to talk and resonate with somebody who like has done this and continue to, even if you found it later than you wish you would have.
Sure.
Like it's super cool to hear, and like a very personal thing to share, but it's a super cool thing to hear of like you finding this and how like it's transformed so much of your life, and how much like you will be so thankful in the long term that like to be damned to find it earlier, just being happy you did, you
Right,
know what I mean?
right.
In a time frame that made sense for you, and finding that thing in life that forced you to face those demons and forced you to kind of like, okay, I can't just ignore this anymore. I can't just do this. Why would my wife want to be around me? Like those kind of things. It's like it's a blessing to find it, especially in all places like bodybuilding, and it's like, and I think everybody finds those kind of things a lot of times in adversity, and it's really cool to hear the story, because I think people who, and I don't know how big our audience is, but I think stuff like that is important for people to hear at times, because they go through their own versions of darkness. And again, I've resonated a ton with it, of like ferns grow in the dark, and it's like you can be somebody who grows even in an environment that isn't ideal, isn't exactly what you would hope for. And while you look back and you find understanding with how things happened, you can always wish that it was different, but it's like the important thing though is finding the ways to not recreate those same cycles, and to look at this and say, you know what, I'm going to take this head on, and this is not who I'm going to be. This is not the life I'm going to have. This is not the life my wife's going to have. It's not the life my kids are going to have. And that's like such an important perspective, that like people fall victim to being a victim so frequently. And it's just like, well, that's something that I see a lot in my family, is they're all victims. They're
Sure.
all,
Yep.
this was done to me, so I deserve this, no matter who it hurts or what it does. Like, this is mine now, or whatever that looks like. And it's like, it's just so frustrating to, be a part of at times. And, especially being younger and being a part of it, whether, like wherever it came from. But it's like, it's something that I had to struggle with a lot, and finding and coming to that realization of my own, of like, I'm going to be this exact same person unless I fucking doing something about it
Yep.
today, and like changing those things, and looking in the mirror and fighting, the person that I could easily be, that I'm already being, you know what I mean? Where it was like my early relationships or whatever that was like, it was like, I was a ultra dependent and like crappy boyfriend, you know what I mean? And it's like, okay, well, is this what I want? Is this like is this the person that I'm going to want to be? Would I want to marry myself?
Right.
And it's like, and it took me a while to kind of figure those things out for myself, but it's like, those things are just so important for people. And I feel like they just, this happened to me, so I don't care about anybody else anymore.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Well,
Go ahead.
what's the example of? I probably even talked about this before, but the two brothers that you obviously grew up in the same household. One grew up to be very successful. I think he was a police officer, very decorated, very successful within his career, and the other one was homeless from time to time, alcoholic, drug
Mhm.
addict. Any relationship he ever had, he was abusive in. And they interviewed both brothers, and both of them, they asked both of them, why do you think you ended up here in life? And both of them had the same answer, and it was because of my father. And
Right.
obviously one learned from his father, what to do, another one learned what not to do. But I think the thing that the example fails to explain is the one that learned from his father and what not to do is it was very difficult. It wasn't an easy realization. It
Right.
was like you talk about, like legitimately reprogramming your brain
Right.
on things that you learned from day one, from birth. That
Yep.
it is not an easy thing to do. And I can't sit here and say that I've had to completely reprogram my brain.
Right.
But I think there are some things that, I maybe just even lessons I didn't learn in life that I have had to kind of transition or reprogram and it is some of the most difficult things that I've had to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're I tread carefully when I say this, because I don't know if many young ears would be able to, if they were to, if I were to say exactly what I went through and I would have followed it with this, I don't know if many people would be able to accept it. And what I've learned now is that I've been given gifts,
Mm.
right? Like immense gifts.
Mhm.
And I mean, like my stuff started like from as early as my mom essentially abandoning me and then being murdered, right? Like it started 3 years old, 2.5 years old, right? Early on, just never having that. And then just cascaded on and on. And I still say it was a gift. And the reason I say it's a gift is because I love my life.
Mm.
I love my kids. I love my wife. I love where I'm at in life, where I am at personally. I'm trying to love myself as like woo woo or as like weird as that sounds, right? But like I can say that because my entire life I've hated myself.
Right.
So I'm gonna say that. And so like for me, it's a gift. All the things that have happened around me or to me at that time in the past have happened for me. They're
Mhm.
gifts, because if right now is not a present, then I don't know what it is, right?
Right.
Absolutely.
I would not change
Mhm.
anything about. I get to go home tonight. My kids will be in bed, right? I'm gonna lay with them. I'm gonna talk, whatever. Like I'll be tired. I'll be hungry or whatever it is. But it's a gift, especially where we live in this country versus like where
Mhm.
everybody
Oh,
else
yeah.
lives, right? And so like I get to drive a truck home, or like I have a house.
Yeah.
Like they're just gifts, especially based off of my perspective of life early on. And so like I don't know if the young me would have been able to like really wrap his head around like me saying these things are a gift,
Sure.
because I wouldn't change them.
Yeah.
I quite honestly wouldn't change any of them. And so what the analogy that I give is those gifts were given to me, but they were given to me at a time in my life that like I didn't even have a toolbox. I was given all these tools, right? And then I was given, quite literally, because I lived out of a trash bag or like a grocery bag for most of my life. I was given like a bag to put all these tools in. And so my entire life, I've been using a hammer when I should have used a screwdriver,
Mm.
or a screwdriver when I should have used a skill saw, or whatever it
Yeah.
was, right?
Right.
Trying to pick put a circle into a round or a square peg, however
Yeah, I
the
know
saying
what you're
goes.
saying.
And so I've had the tools. That's why I think I was able to be successful in bodybuilding, because I
Sure.
had the tools, and it eliminated things like alcohol, things like food, and these coping mechanisms, or things that would get in the way. And so I was able to use this tool of suffering or going or grinding or going above and beyond, right? That I had to as a survival mechanism as a kid. And so now at the spry age of 35, 36, I started to do work. What I realized is like, all right, go get you a fucking toolbox and start organizing your tools.
Mhm.
So now I'm in the process of getting all those tools, dumping them out of the damn bag, and okay, let's put this here so I know when I need this, I'll use this,
Mhm.
right? And because now as a father, that's all I'm doing is I'm taking these tools and I'm saying, this is how you use this on this, and this is how you use this on that, right? I want to build this. Well, I need a hammer and I need nails, right? Or if I'm trying to do something very soft and articulate, put the hammer away. You don't
Mhm.
need that. You need a
Right.
tape measure, because you need to be calculated, right?
Mm.
Right.
And so that's my analogy that I give from my life, that where I'm
Sure.
at right now. And so for me, they have been gifts, and I know
Yeah.
a lot of people wouldn't maybe not be able to
Well,
accept
I
that.
think that makes sense though, and I think people, and I think that's a struggle that people maybe haven't lived through such things. Like it's hard to see, but it's hard to understand. But it resonates with me a lot. Like I look at the greed that I've been exposed to, and that leads me to being altruistic. It leads me to being giving. It leads me to like, oh, this nope, don't want it. There you go. You want
Because
it?
you know what it does.
Right. And it's like, I've seen things snatched away from people that, like stolen, whatever. And it's like, I've seen the greed happen before my eyes, like so vividly. And it's like, that has led me to be like, okay, here's where we were. Let's swing the spectrum as far away as we can just to balance out the universe. And it's like part of those things you say, even though they're terrible tragedies or things that are really tough in life for people to kind of experience, it's like there are gifts in those. There are things to learn. There are things to, in my situation, like I said, like it's led me to being giving and altruistic, and like for people who are ignored through childhood, gives you an ear to listen, and like those who were talked at develop a way of having inclusion in their conversations, and finding those kind of positives, or just like gifts, like you even said, like those are gifts that like that's how we break those cycles, though. That's how those things go from being something that repeats itself over and over again to now the cycle that you're creating in your family is something completely different.
Completely different,
Right.
right? It
Completely
stops
different.
with me.
Right.
Your kids are
Amen.
learning to use the tape measure in these situations. They're not learning the hammer and then have to spend that effort reprogramming. Don't use the hammer, even though all of my instincts are telling me to
Right.
do this. Use the tape measure.
Right.
Or if they
Cycles
do
of
use the hammer,
positivity.
if
Yeah.
they do use the hammer, I say, hey, maybe here's a tape measure. What do you think?
Yeah.
What do you think? Right?
Yeah.
Being able to like slow that down
Yeah.
as opposed to just feed it.
I have this is kind of a funny story. There was one time I had a paintball gun inside, loaded and safety not on. And I went to go pick it up, and for some reason I didn't practice my gun safety education on a paintball gun.
Was it a real paintball gun? We're talking a gun.
Real paintball gun.
Okay, I thought maybe it was like a.
He's nerfing the story.
No,
Yeah.
No. But I went to pick it up, and my finger hit the trigger, and I shot my dad in the leg about 3 feet away
Oh,
several times.
oh,
And I don't know if you've ever been hit with a paintball gun that close, but it's gonna bleed
oh yeah.
and
yeah.
leave a big old welt. And
How did he handle that?
really well, because I had guidance from my mom. My mom was standing right there. I was like, I'm sitting here thinking this is going to be the most mad I've ever seen my dad. And I'm sitting here trying to think of like an explanation or an excuse or this or that. And my mom was like, just say sorry. And I'm like, and it just went against my instincts to say it. But I was like, I'm so nervous that I just was like, I'm sorry, Dad. And he instantly cooled down. And since that moment, I've been able to say sorry when I make a mistake so much quicker.
Yep.
It's become, before that moment, it was not an instinct at all. It was actually against my instinct.
How old were you?
I was probably in my teens. I think I was maybe like 14, 15.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool. It's like the coding on the computer is blinking, right?
Mhm.
And it's like, which way is it going to go?
Yeah.
Which way is it going to go? And then sorry. And it's like, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Thank goodness my mom was standing there, because that would have been a way worse sight if I would have started making excuses why I shot my dad with a paintball gun.
Right. Right.
That's hilarious.
Well, it's like, and it's something that we even, instill into people today. It's like how you handle these situations. And a big part of that is, we deal with people, whether it's working, whether it's kids, or whether it's whatever, if relationships, it's, the positive reinforcement around doing something the right way, right? Like you said, you were sorry and your dad was totally fine. Okay. And it's like that gave you the belief that saying sorry does something.
Mhm.
And like that's such an important aspect for people to learn, especially if they haven't been around where that makes sense. Sometimes it's like, we've had situations with employees where they just want to tell somebody to do something. Just tell them over and over and over again. And it's like, tell them once, ask them politely, and then now, talking to the other employee, it's like, hey, let's reinforce that works. Like, hey, if somebody asks you to do something, do it. Build the confidence in them that this is all it takes. You don't have to turn it up to an 11 to get somebody to do something that they need to do. Sometimes it takes a 1. And like the trust in a 1 when all you've ever had belief in was turning it up to an 11 can be such a freeing thing for people because it shows them the belief that like, hey, when I mess up, if I say I'm sorry, it actually fixes.
They're not going to clam up, right?
Right.
A little roly-poly.
Yeah, it
Just shut
fixes
down.
the issue most of the time.
Yeah.
You know what? If I ask somebody to do something politely as opposed to demanding them do it and then demand it 3 more times in the next 2 minutes, like, hey, the positive affirmation or like the true, like showing them that like this works. And then it's like, okay, the more belief they have in that. And look at you now. You apologize all the time. You mess up constantly. Like,
Thank goodness I know how to say sorry.
daily. I can't tell you how many times you told me that. I'm just kidding. But it's like, but that is something that like I like have noticed about you though in general. Like our entire friendship is like when something goes wrong, you are quick to apologize. Hey, I'm sorry, man. I've been just really stressed out. We've had a lot of stuff going on with X, Y, and Z. And dude, I was an asshole. I'm sorry. Like I really didn't mean to act that way. And then now it's funny because like I just like, bro, I didn't even notice. Like I don't care. You know what I mean? But it's like, but it's part of that, like the belief was instilled to you, especially in that moment, that like this works. And that's an important life lesson for lots of like just forever.
Yeah, as a dad, like from me looking at that, it's super rad. Because like I've been in situations where like I've been at a 15 on the 1 to 10.
Yeah.
And like trying to navigate that, right?
Yeah.
That's really cool. Because it's especially knowing like how big of an impression that made. Like I'll take that. And whenever I'm at a 15 again, because it's gonna happen, I literally will do this. I'll be like, I remember what Kevin said.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay. Like I will literally take that and I'll use it.
Such an impressionable moment. Like it shows like how much that moment, that decision your mom made, you made, and your dad made, like created this, you know, a thought stamp in your brain that's so intense. And it's like, even in relationships, like Laurel and I, like if, you know, just like any other couple, like we have our arguments and we have our issues, but it's like, you know, one of her main love languages is like physical touch. And the thing that I found is that as bad as we can go at it at times, and it's not ever bad really, but it's like, you know, we have our share of arguments and stuff. You know, the person you love will be the person that pisses you off probably more than anybody. But it's something that when I realize what's happening in those is like for her, understandably, she pushes back until I convince her I still love her. Right. And sometimes it's the smallest thing, but for her with the physical touch, it's we're having a big argument or something's come up and it's like we've kind of reached like a silent point. And as much as I don't like, I want to fight because I'm angry, is like I put my hand on her. I put my hand on her shoulder, her knee, or whatever. And it's like clockwork. The moment my hand hits her knee, her head hits my shoulder, and we both feel better. And it's like we both are like, I'm sorry. Like I just got angry and, you know, whatever. And that opens a line of communication for us. And it's like understanding that about a partner or your child or whatever. It's like those things where it's like, hey, like I've learned that, you know, this is how we navigate those things. And it's super valuable, whether it's apologizing or putting your hand on somebody or whatever that is, but it's just like finding the ways to unlock those situations. Just are super valuable.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That one's been extremely difficult for me with my wife. Like as of late, it's been a gift that's been given to me, but not having a mother figure and then 2 stepmoms that have been, you know, drugs and then deceased after that. Like I didn't know how. I don't know how the hell that we just hit, what did I say? 17 years together, 12 years married. Wow. Right. Yesterday we did that.
Wow.
And of her strength and fortitude. Right. But like what you're saying, didn't understand it. Didn't understand like that whole, like the double helix DNA is in and out, right? The whole relationship, right? Didn't understand that you have both. And sometimes she would tell me, I just want a hug. I just need a hug. And I'd be like, I just stare at her like, I did not understand it until late. Like, oh, and I have a daughter and I still didn't understand it, right? My daughter sometimes, and I ask her, what do you need? I just want a hug. I'm like, okay, now I understand. Now I've been given that gift of understanding, like, okay, she just needs a hug.
Right.
And then what happens is, like you say, well, then for me, I'm like, oh, That does feel good.
Right.
Oh,
I feel better too.
Yeah, I'm like,
Yeah.
oh shit. Like, yeah, like, the hug does work. Damn.
yeah.
Yeah, it's nice.
Hugs for everybody.
Yeah, fuck.
Both on the
Yeah.
same page of, man, it's a lot more fun if we're not angry at each other.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it turns
yeah,
out. I
yeah.
feel that's a way cooler
Yeah.
feeling. Like, as much as I was in the moment enjoying being angry, apparently, like, well, this
Yeah.
is a whole lot of a cooler feeling.
Let
Yeah.
me take these gloves off.
Yeah,
Sorry.
right.
Yeah.
All right, guys. We're cooking towards the 3-hour mark.
I told
Sean
you.
called it.
I told you.
I warned him. I was like, you okay with 2 hours? He's like, we're doing 3.
Yeah.
We're going a la Rogan.
Yeah. It's tough, man. You know, people get on here and they're like, man, they're so, but it's like, you get going. It's like, we could be sitting here until 3:00 in the morning if
We'll
we
just
wanted
make
to.
this the part 1.
That's right.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
We'll have you
The
back.
next
man.
one will be at the warehouse.
I'm
there.
down. I'm down. Dude, we got
Yeah.
our podcast equipment is portable. We can do it on your podcast
Yeah.
if you want. Dude, I'm down.
No, we'll do it on y'all. I'm not doing anything yet.
Yeah.
We good.
We'll come use your studio.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
We can
Well-
do sauna and ice before.
Ooh, I'm
Yeah.
in.
I'm
I'm
super down for
totally in.
that.
Yeah.
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 That would actually be a lot of fun. I'm super relaxed and in a great mood after an ice bath.
Dude,
Yeah,
some-
for sure.
I'll definitely lower it to like 32 for you.
Yeah.
So you're not super relaxed.
Yeah.
I'll dip my feet in there.
Yeah.
It's cold as dude.
Dude, I do cold bath. I do them a little bit longer. I go like more like 5 to 10 minutes. And I do them, and I only do them like every couple of weeks, but I'm in like the 50s. So
Mm.
maybe not the 30s would be appreciated.
It's at 38 right now.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
38. It's roughs between 38 and 40. Goes back and forth because of the variance.
Mhm.
Yep.
It feels good.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're good. You'll be
Okay.
all right.
All right.
Yeah.
I'll leave it there. I won't go lower.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll do 38. I'll do 38.
We'll do it, and then we'll do the podcast in our swimming trunks, and it'll be nice.
Down. Do them in the ice bath.
Ooh, yeah, try that would be so here.
We could start that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
We
think
would
Kevin
all-
Hart does that.
Does he really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. I did see that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ryan's like, this is the dumbest idea.
No, we'll all be hanging out, and then Ryan will be recording from the ice bath.
Ooh,
I'll let y'all be in the ice bath.
We could just take turns.
yeah.
Who's
All right,
ever
who's in
talking
next?
jumps in. Yeah.
Yeah.
To answer any questions, you have to go back into the ice bath.
Instead of the hot seat, it's the cold seat.
Yeah, I like it.
There we go. There we go.
Yeah.
Cold
Well-
Seat podcast.
Well, Sean, this has been a blast, man. This has been super awesome. We've touched on some topics that like we've never delved into, and I think it's cool to kind of have different guests on because we see different perspectives and different things that happen. And this has been a really cool one, man. I appreciate you coming on. I appreciate your openness, and the things that we've talked about have been really cool. And we've kind of hit a deeper, more serious podcast than we've had in the past. But I think that's a good perspective for everybody to have and people to understand, and something to even potentially learn from is your experience and the way you look at things. And like you talked about, like not being a victim and finding way. Whenever you find it, it's finding it is the important thing. And,
Right.
so it's been really cool. Obviously, you have your business and you do a great job with that. But the cool thing that I think you talked about today was the thing you do better at is being a husband and a father, and that's super cool to hear and get to hear firsthand from you. And so appreciate you a ton, man. Obviously a big friend and friend of the store and friend of all of us personally. And so, man, yeah. Anything to say before you go?
Nah, appreciate you guys having me out.
Yeah.
Looking forward to the next one.
That's right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tell Jess we said thanks for
Holding
letting
down
us
Yeah.
borrow you for the evening.
Yeah.
Tell the kids we said hi.
Yeah.
I needed a break.
Yeah. Dude, these are the breaks we get, honestly, man.
Yeah.
It's just to hang out and talk, smoke
Yeah.
a cigar.
Yeah.
They're fun, man.
As much as I do love and enjoy it, he's teething right now, so
Yeah.
it's been fun. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
I appreciate it again, guys.
Well, sweet.
Yeah.
Well,
Thanks.
this was episode 22?
22.
22. All right, guys. Appreciate you as always.
Thanks for watching.